Today is Tuesday, August the 9th, 2022. This is the Board of County Commissioners work session. We're starting our meeting today here at 1 o'clock with a jail data update. And we have Joey DeSalvo, Sheriff DeSalvo in the room, and Deputy Under Sheriff, or whatever we're calling Alex, the man of the hour. In the room, we have Kim Valerio from the Pickett County Jail online, and Patrick Jablonski, I'm sorry. Online with us. So, Joey, I'm going to give it to you.
And I'm going to give it back to Peacock or Rich, whoever's going to kick us off.
John Peacock.
I am not sure they can hear us.
It doesn't look like John hears us.
John looks frozen.
His eyes were moving.
His eyes are moving. His face is frozen, but his eyes are moving.
You may have to do that all over again, Patty.
Okay, we're unmuted over here.
John, can you hear us?
No.
We should hold up a sign to
Patrick
John
hear
that
us?
says
We
can't.
should have like flags.
Patrick, can you hear us?
There's
Oh, so
nobody
no
there.
one online can hear us.
They're wondering why we're not starting the meeting.
Test.
I know. Sorry, guys, we can't hear you. You can't hear us.
Where's Kelly?
She's online.
There she is.
We should be able to hear them.
Kelly, can you hear us?
Looks like no one online can hear
me?
us.
I can't hear the room at all.
I can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Hi, John.
You can't hear us.
Hi.
They can
Kelly,
hear
I owe you a phone call. I ended up bringing my dad to the hospital on Sunday, so I've been distracted.
I'm sure.
Check,
Before
check.
next week would be great.
Okay.
Not soon.
All right,
John,
do we
can
have a
you
clue
hear
here?
Joe DeSalvo?
So I can hear you guys, but I can't hear the room either.
Okay, I'm gonna, let
They
me
can
see
hear
if I
each
can
other,
get
they
on
can't hear
real
me.
quick. I'm gonna try this without. Hey, John, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Rich.
We're having
Okay.
trouble here, so hang tight.
Somebody's computer is giving feedback.
That was because he has-
me trying to
Oh,
talk to them real quick. so.
I don't have my Zoom on.
Hey, Rich, if you can hear me, sometimes it's the volume on the pad next to you.
Can you hear us now?
Is it the
Test.
volume here? You said on the
It's-
pad
it's-
next to us?
Yeah, that is on. So you'll hear that like little bit of feedback. That's on.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's not mute here.
can you hear us? Test. We're unmuted on everything.
Are you guys able to hear us in the room?
We can hear you, but you can't hear
But
us.
we can't hear you. Yeah.
That's-
And those are all unmuted as well. Nothing is muted here.
Rich, sometimes there's a button that mutes all the mics on that pad too.
It's all on.
Okay.
Well, if we can hear John.
They're all on, John.
What do you guys see on your end?
If we go on Zoom, you mean?
You're able to get both ways?
That is strange.
Oh, time for a nap, maybe.
Totally
Nice ties up there next to you.
He's got some heifers up there.
And this PC mute wouldn't.
You guys,
His
not
fencing
gonna
crew
work.
hadn't made it
We can
clear
hear you
around the
several
pasture
times,
they
Patty.
were in. Of course, then some of them got out.
Yeah, he said the fencing is just.
and like that was enough.
No, some of it hadn't been looked at since I did it, like
Really.
however many years
Your
ago.
default microphone has
He's
changed
up
to
on,
digital audio. Will now
Up
be
in
used.
Thompson right now, working on fencing today.
Test.
But I know he said they've done some fencing over there.
Test.
More that needs to be done.
So there was
Test.
places,
Test.
Brad Day's guys had just cut the fence to let the cows go in and out.
Unbelievable.
They
Test.
weren't keeping them in the meadow, and
So
then
strange.
let them eat that, and then turn them out on the
okay.
range. Let them eat that, and then
Yeah,
turn them
right.
out on the forest. That's what they should have been doing, but they,
Just let him do the whole thing.
Well, the trouble
They
is they
go
can't hear us,
in the
so
meadow,
he's
they'd
gonna be
there about
engaged
2
in the
days, and then
Kelly wouldn't be able to hear
3 miles
it.
up the creek wanting to go out in the forest.
No, nobody,
Plus, that's so bad for
They can hear
pastures.
each
they can hear each other,
Do
but
it
they can't hear us talking to them. So unless I unmute
See
mine.
the hay he just put up. I'll
Hi,
show you a picture.
Andrew. I'm
Oh my
well.
God. It
Can
is
I
oats,
ask you a
rye,
quick question?
and peas.
We're trying to open up the BOCC meeting, and presently we are
And,
connected to the grassroots audio. We're unmute on the touch screen
And he
system.
just-
All of the
the timing
microphones are
was
turned
just
on
so
and verified.
incredibly perfect.
Everything
It
is
was just
unmute
awesome.
on the computer.
And so he got
and
it all
grassroots is
140
saying they're
round
getting
bales
our
on
audio
45
through the
acres.
microphones, but nobody on Zoom can hear us.
I'm gonna
And
call John real quick, just to
verified
keep him posted.
microphone on
Is this
Zoom
at,
That's
is
the flying dog.
the
Flying
same as
dog,
the
okay.
And look
system,
at the
so
shape
it's
of
the
the field.
USB
It's so funny
audio.
when Sierra got this, she said, "Oh, is Ty starting a baseball league?"
So is
Yeah,
that in the
we
center
just have to make sure that
Hey,
everything's
we're
recorded.
checking
It
what's going
is.
on.
Yeah, I've
So
tried
that's
it
like
on
a
all of them. The
center
only
So
one
the
that works
center
is the
pivot
real,
is right
Realtek
there.
audio
So
microphone. That
it
is a
goes
better
from
laptop.
Grassroots says that
Yeah.
they,
Test,
everything looks
test.
like a gold, we just aren't getting anything
Oh,
else.
side roll,
Side
okay.
rolls, yeah, right
So,
there.
and
And
that, the
so the center pivot.
Right.
Oh, it does a half, right?
Yeah.
And everything is unmute.
There's a mute.
Then, he has,
That's not it,
Yeah.
is it?
Hey,
It could be.
we were having a problem hearing, can't hear us, we can hear you. So we're trying to figure
14,
out
and
that.
he has been helping Ty
Right.
all summer, and it's like he's refound
No.
himself. He was a little bit chubby, and he was teased at Waldorf.
They did, yeah.
Can we call into
And,
who?
you know, Forest kids.
You
are
might
so
let everybody know
macho
that,
it
because
was
they can't
hard
hear
for
us,
Finn to
so,
fit in. Just a
I
really
don't
sweet
know,
guy.
can we
And so he's been with Ty all summer.
Yeah, yep, I've tried all of the audio.
So everyone on the Zoom call, you can still hear me?
Tractors, and he
Integrated.
actually picked up
They
bales.
are
You know how
And as you can
having
hear,
some
it's
technical
together in
difficulties
one
with
area,
the
and then you pick 'em up.
microphones
So he did all
for
of
whatever
that.
reason, and
drove
are
the night when they
unable
were
to
getting
get them hooked up. But everything is showing a go on the
Technology.
grassroots side and our side.
And then go into the microphone
So,
module on the right side.
hang
Everything is
tight.
on mute here as
Patrick, you
well.
have to fit your 3-hour presentation into 30 minutes now.
Oh, yeah, this is before he
Hi,
finished.
Bridget.
Anyway, it's so cool. And the peas, you can actually go out and eat them, you know.
So it's like green
We're awaiting
peas.
COVID
They're
test
just like-
results.
Oh, no.
Cool.
Ty said he thinks.
Let me try
How do
that.
they dry when
Fine, the
you
kids
swallow?
I unplugged and plugged, but I will put it into a different.
Oh, okay.
With the seeds inside and the pod.
Lots of popsicles though.
This guy will just love it, but he's probably gonna sell it. Never a
dull moment, huh?
Never, yeah.
And then
All good.
the green
Test.
package was cut
Test,
like the third week.
test, test,
So it's already knee deep.
test,
And
test,
grass, the first cutting, and now the alfalfa's moving.
test.
So he's
Yeah.
had just an amazing.
Here.
I'll get a fourth.
It's
Does
really
he
good.
get
Test,
does he get
test.
elk meat there crazy?
Oh, God, so many.
All the time.
So many. He thinks he lost 30% of his crop to elk.
I've got 3 or 4 bull elk every morning in the field in front of my house.
Okay, we need
Right
to-
when it's, you know,
I'm sorry.
turning,
Like, don't you
turning
normally on the
right,
Zoom,
they'll
don't
be
you
out
normally
there
see what we're
grazing.
streaming?
Yeah,
They-
we
it's the
should see
second
that
growth
on
after we
like
grazed
with
the
our self
cows
view.
over it, so it's,
So
And it's not
It's
on
really
there,
nice.
so I don't,
lush grass. And
so I
they
think
love it.
grassroots isn't tied in.
Yeah. Well, Ty
So
said
this is our
yesterday,
Zoom one, but yeah, you're
there
not.
were
I
38
see.
cows,
So we
and
have
he thinks they
the
were
Zoom one, but it doesn't look like
20 or more
grassroots
babies,
is
which is
like
great,
we're
'cause the
disconnected
last
from
time I
you
looked,
somehow.
did you see 5
Because
babies?
we should see
He
right
said, "No,
here in
there's-
our Picking
there's more
Honey
than 20
Zoom one.
babies."
Yeah, and you know,
So
Rich,
cute.
that's what usually happens. They can't hear us until we're connected to
Yeah, they have been in
grassroots.
and said they were in those.
Maybe can you
that-
call Amy?
the pea
So there's a
field.
glitch between here and
At
there.
first, they were hesitant to go in there. You know, at first, of course, they just went up to the
What you
edge,
recommend we do?
Yeah. Yep.
cultivated it.
I'm calling Amy real quick, hang
even
tight.
when it was-
You know, whenever I came down, Charlotte mentioned
Amy
that
because
she pulled it up and there wasn't anything yet.
correct.
You can hear Michaela now.
Can you hear now?
Yeah, but that's just because the audio is coming.
Oh.
Sorry.
I can't hear you, Rich.
Sorry, that's just because the audio is coming from the laptop. Hi, John. This is just Michaela coming from the laptop, not actually the BOCC microphones. We're
we'd figure this out by
disconnected
now.
from grassroots somehow, so We just need to give Amy a quick call and determine how to connect what we're running here with the grassroots system. So apologies for the delay, and we'll be back shortly.
Oh, okay.
We
Thanks
can
for
hear
calling.
all of you, so just as a reminder.
Perhaps I should get a fourth grade.
Middle school.
I'm gonna go and talk.
I don't know, I bet my 7-year-old grandson could figure out how to
Be a
read.
parent, this
Francie,
is,
were you gonna
we're
come
set
to
up
the,
as
to
we
Tom-
should
did you
be.
come to Thomasville last night?
I didn't.
Oh.
I didn't. I spoke a lot at the last meeting and talked about every issue I could think of, including the introduction of wolves and you know, I was involved with something else last night, and I just thought, I don't have anything else to say.
It was a good meeting. We talked about traffic and speed, and traffic enforcement, and visibility, and presence. It was good.
How often do you guys go up there?
You know, I hate to admit it, but I haven't been up there probably in 5 years.
But I mean a car.
Anybody
Which
watching?
is why I'm thinking of something with your audio. So this is
That's
the
not very
view
much.
that we see right now.
So what I was
Whereas
just telling
usually
Joe
we
is that
see the room,
we got,
well, I guess I'm not start off, but
Prompt
like,
that conversation.
you don't see anything. It's just a black
Yeah,
screen.
but we can do that.
So
so it looks, you know, it gives us an idea of when we should be there based on historical data, traffic volumes and speed counts and stuff.
Is there speeding up there? Quite.
It's not as bad as they say, it's just like, but it's.
We shouldn't have improved the road as much. Keep them going a little slower.
10 miles an hour plus speed limits. So.
I've
Yeah.
definitely seen a sheriff's car more
honestly
often on
think we
Prince
should-
Creek this summer. Maybe it's just because I'm
Bring
on
it
the
up,
road more
let
often, or
guys
are you
chew on
covering
a
it more?
little bit.
Yeah, it's part of that rural area deputy program, that backcountry program we have to get out into the kind of the rural areas.
And
of
we're
town.
launching our boat this weekend. We now have a sheriff's boat that patrols Route I.
Oh, cool.
There's a lot of drunk boaters that
Oh.
turn into drunk.
Now, we all want
You carry your
to,
fishing
we all want a
license when you're
site
out there?
visit. Joey, we all want a site visit and get a ride on the motorboat.
it is.
No, it's not.
It's putt-putt.
So it's in SDI loop out. So you want me to change
I want
that?
to drive it. That looks like that'd be like a sports car.
I'll warn my kids when they take their party boat out on the lake next time.
Yeah, tell them that.
How
the
often are
cops-
you on
There's
Prince Creek
cops
now?
now.
Don't actually
Tough to say, it's
screw
just part
those.
of the routine patrol, so we don't keep too much track of it.
At some point,
Oh, yes, it's definitely a putt-putt. It's
Yeah,
a little fishing boat.
It's 18 foot.
Oh, here we
It's like
go.
a bass boat.
How big is
That
that?
was it. Thank
I agree, I agree. Okay, I think we did right.
I'm sure you'll prove that.
Okay, guys,
Oh, at the,
can you hear us now?
That's big.
Employee picnic.
Yes,
Zoom
okay.
go fast.
we'll see you tomorrow.
All right, John Peacock, we're gonna ask you to lead off this conversation, please.
All right, Patty, thank you very much, and sorry for the delay. So back in April, Justice Planners had presented information, forecasts really, that we are using as a basis for jail planning. And we are in the stage now where we're preparing to go into the next phase of actually programming facilities based on the data that was presented and the goals that were expressed by the board. However, at that meeting and subsequently, the board has raised questions about the projections and wanting to understand better the statistical basis. I think some of that has come, for example, Patty, I think you've asked questions about are there disconnects between information from our state demographer's office and the data that we're using? How did we derive the data? And then how did we process it to come at the bed projection to feed into the programming study, which is starting. And so Patrick has joined us today from Justice Planners. Patrick did the statistical work that underlies those projections. And we had asked Patrick to address some specific questions as well as be available for additional questions from the board. this point, Patrick, I'm wondering if I might be able to turn it over to you to just kind of walk through the explanation of the letter that you presented, answering questions, and then Patty, open it up to the board for any additional questions that there might be.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. It's nice to see everybody again. It was a very quick, almost 4 months since we were there. And the weather, I'm assuming, is significantly different than the day that we were there in April. My recollection of the question back in April, the main question was the feeling that the category of 20 to 49-year-old males in Pitkin County didn't seem like they were growing or were as prevalent as individuals who were 60 and so we went back and revisited our data from the state demographer's office and double checked our assumptions and calculations, and we found that we were spot on with our calculations when we redid everything. And essentially, I can boil down the issue to this. While currently it is true that the cohort of individuals who are 60 years of age or older in the county is fairly stable, it was growing up until really this moment. The expectation on the part of the state demographer is that that cohort will begin to decline in size, such that when you look at our projections 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, that number of individuals will decline by as much as 23% over time. Meanwhile, there's very good evidence that the reverse would happen for males between the ages of 20 and 49, and that is the bulk of the jail's expected population. That population, males between the ages of 20 and 49, are expected to grow by 21% over the next 20 years, so 25 years. So essentially, yes, it's true currently that individuals 60 and over, significant portion that have been growing, but the expectation is really starting now, and we'll see it in the data very clearly, when population numbers are updated in 2025, that individuals 60 and over, there will be fewer of them in Pitkin County, and that is expected to continue over time. Now, saying all of that, let's keep in mind that our forecast models, the population growth is actually the 5th most important variable in our calculations. So when we model what the expected needs are for the county in terms of bed space, it was 5th in line in terms of importance. What was more important were individuals being detained, bookings and commitments into the facility, which we expect to bounce back and normalize once Pitkin County has a facility in place that's fully operational. The average length of stay of individuals, the criminal justice case processing for those individuals, and returns to custody over time. Those are our 4 most important variables, such that if we were to remove the question of population growth altogether from our models, really our numbers would not vary all that much. We would be talking really a handful of beds at most.
Okay, is that?
Yeah, Patty, I'd pause there just because I think that was one of the main questions from the board, and just, see if we have additional questions or data needs. Did that answer concerns that board members might have?
Does the board have any questions or comments? Steve, please.
I was trying to look at the data and calculate what percentage of beds for female population we would need in relation to the male population. And it seemed like I mean, the figure I came up with was about 1/6 the number of beds for the female population. And maybe that was kind of the average on the projections, but is that kind of the ratio that you would anticipate from the data?
Yes, exactly. And that's really nothing that's peculiar to Pitkin County. Typically, we expect a 15% number. For whatever reason, years ago, we would have said 10% or 12%, but that proportion has grown over time across the country. And so for Pitkin, when we look back through your data, it comes out to be at that range.
Can I jump in and just ask for a little clarifying on that? Because when I go back to the March report and the final bed summary, which is 47, with a recommendation of 12 beds for women, that's closer to 25%. So just help me understand that discrepancy.
Yeah, great point by you. I've got on my other monitor our actual bed need numbers now. The proportion, if you look at some of our, they project out over time, the proportion of females.
He needs to turn off his video, probably.
Hey, Patrick, you're freezing up on our end. I wonder if you maybe turn off your video. I don't know if it's a bandwidth issue or what.
Is it better now? One of the issues, we're having a lightning storm here in Tennessee.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
We had a close stretch at the time I started talking. Hopefully it's okay now. The proportion of females has been growing over time in the population. So if you look at our bed need tables for, let's say, 2025, they're closer to, say, 16 or 17%, and then it climbs to about 24, 25% as we go through time. The proportion of females is slowly yet steadily growing.
Kelly, did that answer your question? Okay, Steve?
Yeah, there was one other thing that I wanted to ask about. It said there's a 13% growth in incarceration impacting population. And I don't know if that was through, I don't remember what year, if that's through 2050 or what, but would that mean that you would recommend projecting that we would need 13% more beds? Or, I mean, we're talking about trying to divert more of the, instead of incarcerating people, diverting them into other programs that they wouldn't have to be incarcerated. So maybe the 13% is way more than we would need to anticipate. But what's your thought on that?
Essentially, that growth of individuals who we would regularly expect to be incarcerated is built into our forecast model. That we expect that proportion to grow, and that would impact really bookings. It would impact the courts, and so it's baked in already. So that growth isn't over and above what we've presented in terms of bed need.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? I'm just going to clarify again that I don't agree with the data. And I appreciate your effort to clarify the data. It just kind of further confused matters for me. I don't agree with the population expected growth of 4% when we haven't seen that and we don't expect it. And from the information that I recently received in May from the state demographer, it shows a continued increase in our senior population across the county, across the state, across the country. So I think it's an overprojection for bed needs for any of our future jail needs. But I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm sure the conversation will come up again. So anything else from the board or further discussion here? Is there more information we're going to present today? I really appreciated the clarification in the letter that Alex received And I have kept all the packet information, all the previous studies and data, trying to find a way to support your projections, and I'm just not there yet. Kelly?
Yeah, thanks, Patty. Remind me again how many beds we have right now, please.
So we have, well, not in use right now, but we currently have 24 general population, max included, and 6 work release. So right now, since with the remodel, the safety remodel, we now have 5 work release beds, and we're not using the work release area, so that would actually be smaller if we were to try to move inmates back in. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks. I guess I'm wondering, I'm kind of looking to John for some direction here on this conversation, because I think that the struggle is, what is the right number of beds to plan for, and what is the right number of programs the right type of programs to plan for, and I'm not sure we've dug into that enough as a board, with just the trade-offs. One of the assumptions I've drawn from reading this data is that there's potentially a very high inefficiency of space in terms of planning for a max usage and then really not needing that much space. And we would have to, if we choose to go down that path, it's hard to argue for a doubling of jail size in our community, right? Which is what this is. And it's hard to ask people to support a project that has a lot of kind of inefficient space built into that. And that's what I think we kind of need to dig into a little bit. And I do fully support, the needs to keep men and women separate. I fully support our need to really construct programming around the mental health and substance abuse needs. And I'm actually excited about the opportunity to kind of co-locate the services, so that the strategy is around the person, rather than maybe that moment in time of their crime. But I don't feel like we've had enough of those conversations, and it's hard because now the data is becoming really troublesome to get over. Like, it is really hard to argue why we would need a doubling of our jail, in what would essentially be kind of a 60-year period, right, from 1984 to 2044. Because I'm not, it's hard to see that the data indicates that. We don't have enough of the data. It's unfortunate we don't have it going before 2015 to really dive in. But you have, Patrick has referenced, and justice planners have referenced some other databases that show a pretty steady state over time. So I think we need to understand how to reconcile all of that together. And, maybe if we start to really parse out how are we serving the mental health and substance abuse needs and have a separate conversation about that, it might start to flesh out what this programming looks like.
Yeah, Kelly, I think that's a really good point, and it's you brought a lot up there. It's a complex conversation, but let me start off with the space efficiency question, because I think that is where a lot of this is coming from, because the most efficient use of space is to place as many people in as small and common a space as possible. That would be the most efficient. And currently, our jail with the direct supervision model, that was implemented originally, is more along those lines than most jails. And so the discernment that I think makes this complicated is and makes the space less efficient, if you will, in terms of more beds, is determining populations that need to be or should be separated for safety reasons. And so, Kelly, you called the first one out, which is separating male and female populations. And so automatically, as soon as you make that initial separation, you're going to get some inefficiencies because you're now building beds that can only be used by female populations and beds that can only be used by male populations, and they won't always be maximized on both sides. And then I think if we turn to our law enforcement, I know Kim is here, and I think, are Alex and Joe in the room? I can't quite see.
Yeah, they are.
Okay. Then there's another level of discernment of populations that start to become important for safety reasons, and that would be between more or less violent reasons for coming into the facility, like you said, whether it's substance or mental health driven versus others. And so you start to classify those populations, and if you do want to separate them both for staff safety and for other inmate, quite frankly, safety, then you start building different beds, and you do increase that inefficiency, Kelly. I think you're absolutely right. The trade-off then is for greater safety for the folks who have to use that facility. So that's one piece that I think we don't understand very well in the data. I know it's taken me a while to grasp it, and I don't think we've had that conversation in depth at the board level. We've touched on it, but I do think it might be worth spending a little bit more time there. So that's one issue that I would advise us to maybe spend a little bit more time on today if we have it. Patty, I'll let you make that decision. The other, I think, conversation is the bed projections right now are an end game, right? They are a projection out to a time frame that's really hard for us to predict with certainty. The farther out we go, the less certain we're going to be about how those projections play out. So another opportunity for this board is to think about, well, what is the incremental step that we are comfortable building to for what populations? And can we just identify space and opportunity to expand to that maximum footprint in the future if we want to? So there's a way for the board to help manage that uncertainty about the total number of beds by taking an incremental approach. But if we're planful about it, it's a smart incremental approach for the community. You don't just cut off your possibilities. So, right now we're in a really constrained space. How do we plan for that? So that's another conversation that would probably make more sense as we get a little bit farther into the programming, so that the board can kind of see, how that incremental approach would play out. And then the third thing that may be easier, and this has kind of been my thought process, is looking at a spreadsheet and these projections. They're a starting point, but it is pretty abstract. It's really difficult to pull all this together, I think, sometimes, until you actually start to see some of the programming, until you see some of the examples of how a facility might work and be operated to help you make more informed decisions about where you want to land on that final programming before we engage an architect. And so I do think some of these questions end up getting fleshed out through the programming process. And that's certainly what happened when we, for example, built the building that this is being broadcast from. You know, there is a lot of decisions that were made during the programming phase that changed the nature of it. So part of it is being comfortable that there's a starting point, and this starting point is very likely not where we're going to end up at the end of this programming phase. So I don't know if that starts to frame up, Kelly, some of the issues that you're bringing to the table, but I'd almost approach it in those three ways. And I would start with making sure that we understand this, you know, the different populations we're serving and why there may be some inefficiency in bed space, just to ensure that we can separate populations that need to be separated.
Kelly, and then I know Francie's been waiting, so.
Oh, sorry. Just to weigh in on that point a little bit. Yeah, I think, you know, another issue that I know I personally would like to understand better, and I'm not sure if my fellow board members feel this way, but, you know, I want to understand, like, what are the best practices for the goals that we want to achieve in the variety of populations. So I'm not jumping to the conclusion that the services we provide for violent criminals are that necessarily different than we provide for nonviolent criminals, you know, so, because I don't know that, and I don't want to jump to that conclusion. Like, if we should, you know, if the best services are what lower recidivism across all groups, then I would hope we aim for that. And, you know, not kind of separate people out of like, okay, well, these opportunities and spaces are going to be designed for this class and these for this class, if that's not merited. And if we can do more cross planning there in a way that works, and I think that directs us to those outcomes, then that's what I think we should do. And you know, that supports kind of what you're proposing here about working through some of these things in the programming of the facility. But that's one of the big questions I have, that I don't necessarily carve out these more differences, you know, in how we classify the populations.
Yeah, and thanks, Kelly. And if I could make one more just kind of clarification on that, I would view the programming and services that are being offered as different from the physical space that may be necessary just to keep people safe. You know, violent offenders versus nonviolent offenders. Mixing those populations can create safety issues, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have availability to the same services to transition them successfully back into the community. And I think that's what I hear you saying. Am I hearing you correctly?
I guess I'm not totally clear on what a designed facility that treats them differently would look like. You know, what are those differences in space design?
Patty?
Thanks.
Yeah, okay, Joey, and then Francie's got it.
I'm sorry, Francie.
It's okay.
Just to add to that, Kelly, and then I've got a statement or some additions to this later. Understand, I've been at this 37 years, and understanding the classification system is a lot to take on. You got to almost think of it as segregation. It's not one person gets different services than another. We may have a murderer in there that's looking at where it's been sentenced, and he may be looking at 30 years or the rest of his life in Department of Corrections. He will be segregated for certain, but he may get different services than somebody who might be serving a 20-day DUI sentence. We cannot intermingle those two people in the same room. It's not fair to the first-time offender of a nonviolent DUI offense. He should have access to treatment where he might get AA classes, he might get diversion, he may get mental health services offered to him that the guy who's going away for life just may not need. He may not be salvageable. We need to work on the people that live and work in this community, our sons and brothers and daughters, that we need to rehabilitate. I would hate to see my sister be arrested for a DUI and have to share a cell with a guy who's going somewhere for 30 years who has virtually nothing to lose. We have to segregate them, and the only way to segregate them is by walls. And I really don't have a dog in this fight. This is a BOCC decision. Contrary to what's out there in the public, I brought you guys a issue. It's up to you to build the jail, determine its size, and to figure out how we're gonna pay for it. It's not the sheriff's job. And that's the information out there that just needs to stop. What I see it is, to make it as simple as possible, and this is really basic, if you look at a big square that's our jail, and it's developed into 4 quadrants, we have men, women, nonviolent offenders, and mentally ill and drug addicted. And that's how I would separate this. And within those quadrants, in the female quadrant, for example, we can't have them mixed with men anymore. We've already had an incident in our jail that's never going to happen again. But that's, again, up to you. That's because we were commingling our inmates. It could never happen again. So within that female wing, it's no matter how many beds we decide, should be services that are mental health, drug and alcohol rehabilitation, how to live without domestic violence in your life. Why are we picking people? I mean, I'm just focusing on the women and men that may have different problems than the whole population. So you really have to understand classification and segregation. And this is also important to the health and welfare of our own staff. We are exposing our people by mixing these populations to violence, and it's just not fair to the employees that work for us. It's not. So I think that whatever we could do, or what I could do to help you understand the classification and segregation, may bring this more into focus, because it's not just a jail. Inside the jail let's look at it as different communities with different needs and different, well, let's just leave it at needs. So I think we might be getting hung up on this, and that number I know is scary, of 47 beds. But if you're looking at classifications, we may have a women's wing that has 10 beds but only 2 people in it. But we never know when we're going to have 10 ladies in our facility. It is almost like looking at a church for Easter Sunday. There may be things we never use. But in 30 years from now, I mean, the Rio Blanco jail, Alex brought it to my attention that the Rio Blanco jail, which by the way is now closed, and it's brand new, and they're moving their inmates to Montrose? Meeker. But it's built for expansion. I mean, the property we're on now is really not expandable. And I recently saw a documentary on an architect named Wexler who was built airports in different cities and schools all around the country that were built in almost pod-like, with area around where they say, okay, today we have 100 people, but next year we're expecting 200 people. They expand the pod. And it's great when you look at it from an airport point of view, how they could add these little pods to expand to different airlines. That's the direction I would ask the board to go, is an expandable facility. But we're not even close to that yet. But I just feel like I need to bring in how important the classification system is, because we're too focused on bed numbers. And I think you got to realize that you may have a quadrangle facility that may only have 2 people in it for 3/4 of the year, but may have a total of 10 in it over the other quarter of the year. So I'll take questions on that if you'd like.
Just real quick, Francie, before and then Steve.
Thank you.
But I don't hear the board, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't hear the board saying that we have an issue with, we aren't going to support segregation. We're not going to ask that the jail continue to mix the population. I don't think the board's going there, and I don't think that's in our minds at all.
No, and I wasn't suggesting that.
We understand that. For me, I appreciate your idea of expandable space, because we did that in this building. We designed it and engineered it in case of future needs. And I think we're thinking the same thing with the airport terminal. But I think in a jail, we might want to be really creative and have flexible space. So you could seal off, if you had 2 women, you could seal up, and you needed space for a mentally ill male, you could seal off that space. So you could use your free space flexibly. It wouldn't always be just for women over here when you only had 1 woman or no women and you needed extra space. I think we need to really be creative about the use of space, so we don't have a lot of the church pews sitting empty for the whole year. I mean,
And
that's
Patty, I
just an
can't
idea.
disagree with that, and I think it's a great idea, but you're dealing with an institution. You're not dealing with this building that was made with
No,
flexible
I understand
walls.
that,
mean,
but
these
I
are
think you could still have
in-
flexible space within the confinements of safety in a facility, a jail facility.
And I understand, and
detention
that would
center.
be up to an architect,
Right,
because
and
as
I
I said, we're dealing with institutional grade
Right,
stuff
but
that's
I
very
think that's something we
expensive
should
to
think
move
about
around.
if we're gonna look at having space sit empty, that space we may need for other purposes.
And
we
I
need
would
to be able to be
support that if
flexible with
that's a
that.
possibility.
I think that's an idea, and I also think we need to look at, how many beds do they have at the Garfield County Jail?
200.
And how many do they use?
Well, that's a different story. I think, Kim's still here. Kim, could you explain the configuration down there for us, please?
Yeah, so they have, like, it's 200 and plus a few. And I think I don't know the exact number right now. They're running around 100, but there was a time when they were over 200 and, putting people on mats on the floor, that type of thing. So they have separate pods. So you have a minimum pod that can house so many, and then you have a medium pod and a max pod, and then a female pod with the max unit within that pod. So they may have, I think there's 64 beds in medium, but they may only be using, half of those beds or half of those cells, because you can't, like Joe mentioned earlier, you can't house a maximum inmate with a minimum inmate.
We understand
You can-
that.
Yeah, okay. So it depends, if they can't, so that they're only using 100 beds, but their numbers are down, and
I'm just trying to be creative and think, we have space down there that's available. Maybe we can work on something to extend our agreement to utilize that space at some level while we're getting a deeper dive into our planning for what we need up here. Because I see a lot of questions still outstanding, a lot of work that needs to come back to the board. I am in no way ready to decide on how many beds, what kind of jail, what kind of services, and how to fund it. That's a huge ask of the BOCC at this point. So I'm going to let Francie and then Steve speak, but I think we got a ways to go in time, and I think we need to work on what we're going to do in that interim time frame.
John, did you want to respond to the Garfield County thing before I start?
Yeah, the only thing is right now we have an agreement that's laid out at 3 years. I do think, Patty, as we look at alternatives that could potentially meet the needs of our community, I think all those options are on the table for ongoing conversation and such.
Okay, great, thanks, John. Okay, Francie, and then Steve, you can follow.
Yeah, I just wanted to back up a lot, because I thought we were talking about a justice center that met the needs of a lot of different needs besides a jail. I thought we had sort of abandoned the thing of talking about a jail, because I thought, like when you were talking about the different quadrants, Joey, we at one point had a conversation about people who there'd been a call on, and you had responded, coming to the something, the front face of it, and going through sort of a program where they were separated out according to what they needed. And so it could be that somebody who's intoxicated and fallen asleep in the alley or something wouldn't go in the jail at all, but would go somewhere else. And didn't we have that conversation before?
Yeah,
And
I have a dream, no pun intended, of what something would look like. But once again, it's not my decision what we
Right.
have, it's yours.
So I was
I would
wondering-
love to have a model, and we're trying to get a tour together for a facility in St. George, Utah, that has just that. You go to a door, and then there might be hypothetically, five different doors, and you go through a different
Right.
door, depending on what your crime is.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the future of jails are gonna be.
Right.
So
So they're not really jails, they're not necessarily all incarceration.
Correct. So, but it's expensive, it's big, and there's a lot of beds. I mean, so I think we're trying to maybe create something that's perfect when there might be something already out there. But you're right, I would like to see my sister, who's arrested for DUI, go through door number 1 and never even see anybody in 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Right.
That's my dream.
Okay, so, and then I thought we had developed this thing called the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee that Kelly is on, and I think. And have we heard back from them at all? I mean, I thought we were gonna be, before we had to talk about facilities anymore, I thought we were gonna have some information about what the community wants in terms of a justice center. So I'm kind of confused about why we're back here talking about a jail with a certain number of beds when I thought we had moved beyond that, and I thought we were waiting for some input from the committee.
So Francie, I can address that. So the CJCC, or the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, is meeting, and it meets to discuss these aspects of exactly what you're talking about. The point of us coming back in front of the board today was simply to answer the questions that were brought up on April 12th, which specifically was the data population, forecasting, analysis, et cetera. I would agree with you. I don't think we're anywhere near a point where we're able to speak about construction, let alone design. But that is definitely a conversation that will be hashed out and brought back to the board after a lot of in-depth analysis and input from Kelly on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee in the future.
And then my other thing is that if we pay people to go out and gather statistics and analyze for them, and they bring it to us, and then we question it, and they go back and rework it and bring it to us again to explain exactly where the numbers come from, why would we reject that? And why would we pay for it in the first place? And why, I mean, it's just math applied to, it's empirical information. They took empirical information, which is population growth historically, and they applied an algorithm to it to predict where we're going. That's just math. It's not about believing it or not.
I said I just have a difference of opinion on it because of the information that I've gained directly from the state demographer about our growth projections. It's just a matter of I just don't agree with it. They may be right and we may have to accept it at the end of the day, but right now I think the expected population growth for our general community is not what I'm hearing from the state demographer.
Okay.
So, but I appreciate your, yeah. So Steve?
So several points, and one, I would agree with having the flexible space. And I kind of like the idea of a pod, different sizes of pods, which one of them might, for a while, have all female people incarcerated in it. And then at another point, maybe it has all people with mental health and substance abuse in the same exact space that is the right size for the number of people needing that treatment right at that time. So then I come to the question of, does each pod have its own kind of day room, dining room area where right now we have one. If we have 4 pods, do we need 4 of those day rooms, outside exercise area? Do we need 4 of everything to keep them segregated?
The answer is yes, more or less. And you also have, once again, the place where my sister is a lot less, you might be less vulnerable in there to things like suicide or hurting yourself than you would be in the max one. It might have a different toilet, a different sink, may not even have a sink in it. It may have, ligature-proof things. And so the more the classification gets higher, the safer the cell itself becomes, just to break it down to a cell.
Mm-hmm.
So to make that interchange
indestructible, and so
right,
somebody
to make
can't
it,
hurt themselves.
I mean, we had a person who virtually destroyed our holding cell 10 years ago, an arrest from Snowmass Village. How he did it, I still don't know. It was superhuman, how this guy just took our cell apart. But I don't see my sister and her DUI being in the max cell. It's not humane to me. And I don't see that max person being put in the DUI cell. So I think, as the classification goes up, so does the security inside the cell.
But we're not here today to design the jail. We're here today to clarify the data that was brought to us in May.
So
prior to
I
May.
ran into that
April.
aforementioned person a couple months ago. He's living in Paonia right now. I didn't know if you knew where he was. I was like totally dumbfounded, but.
And I want to clarify for the public that Joey's sister has not been arrested on a DUI because she's going to be really mad at her brother if it gets out in the newspaper. So please, let's clarify that.
I've told her not to call me if it happens.
So
We're hoping she sorts it out.
I think for now, Alex hit the nail on the head. The reason we're here today was to get this data clarification, which was presented, and that the group is meeting, and that they will come back to us with a full discussion for a future date.
So I do have one more question, and that would have to be with the whole statewide scene, because different jails will house people from different counties from time to time. Some of them there are kind of in the business of providing that service to other counties. We could do the same thing. We could become a receiving center for more people, like if we built more beds and then just
Steve,
accept more people from other areas.
Yeah, it's kind of called the
for-profit
jail.
Always be sending some of ours out.
I would rather send our overflow somewhere else.
So that's a basic thing that we could have to decide.
That's another component we need to think about, but just to close the loop on your point for the people that are listening, I would never support a for-profit jail in Pickens County. I really think it's a bad idea. When we send our own people to a for-profit jail, the treatment goes way down. They're trying to shave pennies off their food to profit more at the inmate expense. So I don't even like sending our inmates to for-profit jails, and I would really not want to be one.
We're not sending her sister there when she goes to
she stays in line. It depends on what my Christmas gift is this year.
So I think we're still working on information coming from the Justice Group to consider as far as a Justice Center model that will help us to provide the programs that we deem to be most important to the type of detainees or the type of arrestees or whatever we want to call them, we receive it in our community. So I think that is for future discussion, but I appreciate the explanation provided to Alex. That was an easy read. Again, I just have an issue with the numbers used in some cases. So.
And Patty, I don't really know how we settle on a number.
We throw a dart at a board.
mean, if you're too big, it's not great. If it's too small, it's really bad.
Yeah, we just have to think about, have to think about, if we're looking at funding a facility, we have to think about the whole picture and how the community's going to receive it. And
to think that, just at the discussion, we outgrew this facility in more than one way in a relatively short period of time. Then we do have to decide what kind of jail we want to have. Do we want a direct supervision jail, which is the most humane way, but it's going to be expensive. So I think, respectfully to all of you, I mean, we're making, and it happens a lot to me and all of you, we're making decisions on things that we're not really in-depth professionals or have all the information on. And direct supervision may have to be a decision the board makes. Do we want to have a direct supervision jail or not? And then we're going to have to learn what direct supervision really means. I know.
Well, we need to learn that before we make a decision whether or not we want to do that.
And that's what I'm saying. So to truly look at direct supervision, it means bigger, more money, and a lot more services.
So we have a lot to discuss here before we bring it to the community with a plan. So.
Absolutely, and sorry my internet dropped there, so I missed some of this. And Patty, that's really what the programming phase is about, is giving us a structured way to have exactly these conversations. Some of us are going to work better on the tactical level, where we kind of get to see how it starts to lay out and how the services might be provided. Some, are going to operate more at the values level. This is a place where we start to bring all of that together so that we can make some of those higher level decisions before we spend a lot of money on architects actually drawing out the facilities. So that we're really at the right place asking these questions, but we felt before we started the programming phase with the, general kind of bed projections and such, that we wanted to come back because there were those questions that the board had to provide an opportunity to have that conversation. And we will come back and multiple times during programming to kind of talk about options and such.
Okay, thank you. And we also need to throw one more thing out at you. We also need to be thinking about an interim plan if we don't have a facility built in 2 years.
For sure.
And that's going to depend on the Garfield County Sheriff and who
Well,
that is.
I didn't want to point fingers at anybody
No,
just
but
yet,
I mean, I think it is important to the public to know that we have a deal with Sheriff Valerio that expires at the end of his term.
So we'll have to
And
be
that
keeping that in mind
is-
as we
Right,
take our
and
time to
I
make the
don't
right
see this
decision.
getting built in Sheriff Valerio's term. And who knows what that means?
Well, yeah, but I don't want us to lose sight of that. 'cause
It's
we-
definitely on our radar, for sure.
I don't want to wait till the end of the day, literally.
Thank
Great.
you, Patrick, for bringing us that analysis of how you got those numbers.
And Greg, you have a,
Yeah, I just said, my question, I appreciate it too. I know this conversation was specifically about the demographers' predictions, and I don't have any problems or questions about that. I am concerned that, our community for decades has been really, our whole ambition, over the years has been to control growth. So we've had that fairly flat, or some would even say declining population growth, relatively speaking. And I'm thinking that the demographer is looking at that, and it all makes sense, and I trust Patrick and his numbers. But we also have a pretty strong ambition in this community to grow our population dramatically through increased affordable housing. We've been told that we need to add 3,000 more units, which could be 5,000 more people, which could double the population of the full-time residents of Aspen. So is the state demographer looking at those numbers when they're giving us these predictions? Because I'm trying to figure out, what's real here. And I don't question anybody's numbers.
Yeah, so Greg, I think we need to be careful because we're putting a lot on the state demographer, and it's actually one of the least influential factors in the bed projection. So
Great.
I just
Thank you.
want to be clear on that. And the other thing that we need to keep in mind when thinking about population as a predictor is it is not just our local population that is served by the jail. We do have guests and such that sometimes go through there, and we know that we have a population that flexes to a significant degree based on seasonality and such. Now, we do have a large number, not a large number, that's probably not the right way to put that, but at least percentage of our guests in the jail are from our local population. So it's still an important factor, but it's not the only one. So we have to look at the growth kind of in resort visitations, second, third, fourth homeowners, and such who may be requiring those services.
And
I don't
if
know
I
if that
may,
helps at all.
and if I can
Yeah.
add on to that point that John just made, let's keep in mind that 40% of the inmate population is from outside of Pitkin County.
And I would add to that our long-term population of those 40% is pretty high. A lot of our people we're holding for years are not Pickens County residents.
and I just think we need to think about when the hospital expanded, it's kind of the same thing. They had to start segregating patients because of different issues, privacy issues, having one patient in a room rather than 2 beds in a room. And so they had to look at that. And they also look at the demographers' numbers of growth and our seasonality of tourism that come here and when their beds fill up. I've been there, in it, when there's no beds left and you're wondering where you're going to put people. And there's some flex space built into that based on the classification of the patient. So that's a good model to be thinking about as we trying to determine how big or what kind of jail facility, justice center we are looking at in the future.
Thanks
All
for
right.
coming.
Thank you very much.
Looks like
Kim, yeah,
Kim has got
please.
something there, sorry.
I just have one quick thing. Something that we need to take into account of on the projections from justice planners was a big chunk of that. Those new bed numbers were, you know, that mental health component and having that. So that really plays into those numbers if we want to provide those services. That definitely made that bed number rise by significantly. And the other thing that I would also say is for my staff, they just want a safe place to work. So we went a long ways with the remodel, and that's been huge, but that's their goal, is they just really want a safe place to work. So
Well, I don't think the Board of Commissioners disagrees with you on that point either, so.
No,
We think that about all of our employees. We want all of our employees in the county to have a safe place to work. Okay. So, we'll be seeing you in next week with a whole different presentation.
No chance. A few months.
Yeah. You know what, I don't think we have time.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
but
having
thank
us.
you, thank you guys. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Alice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, we are now moving on to a ballot question item about the ambulance district funding. So I'm gonna, John, are you kicking this one off too?
I will kick this one off. Hopefully you all are starting to see my screen and my internet isn't bugging out on me again. Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yes. Okay. Success so far. So, Patty, that is correct. Just to revisit real quickly, the ambulance district provides 24-hour pre-hospital emergency medical care to the Aspen community. We do enjoy a high level of service through our ambulance district and the employees that staff it. Our district is able to provide a number of services, and I think most recently we saw the value of that during the pandemic and the different roles that our ambulance district was able to play. Back on July 26th, the board had a presentation about some of the challenges, particularly financial challenges that the ambulance district is facing, and the board directed staff to develop proposed ballot language and a proposed mill levy to address additional costs associated with increased service demands and call volumes, increased operational costs, lower patient reimbursement rates, and just that relatively high volume of non-revenue producing calls that our district responds to. And so today we do have mill levy calculations, and I can't see in the room, I think Ann Driggers is going to be in the room.
She's
with
here,
some
and
paper documents.
so's Gabe. We have Gabe and Ann.
Okay, hi, Ann and Gabe. I apologize. I should have introduced both of you as being part of this at the beginning. You had me going, Patty, just rolling into the next item. So a little bit of background. The Aspen Ambulance is a special district. It is authorized to assess property taxes to provide ambulance services. The original mill levy was set in 1982 at 0.82 mills. In 2014, that mill levy was changed and approved at 0.501 mills. But the big change was that the funding was debruced. Under Tabor, as assessed valuations go up, property taxes are only allowed to grow at inflation and new growth. And what had happened over time is the district had to give temporary mill levy reductions that were well below that 0.501 mill levy in order to stay in compliance with Tabor. So the deal in 2014 was to reduce the total allowed mill levy from 0.82 to 0.501, but to debruce those revenues to take advantage of significantly increased property values. The purpose for that change was to fund certificates of participation to construct the new ambulance facility. We're very proud of that facility. It's a great facility. It was completed in 2019. And the tax provided for the repayment of the certificates of participation, plus about an extra $100,000 in operating costs. And the idea behind that $100,000 is that the larger, more modern facility would actually have some additional operating and maintenance costs, particularly with the more sophisticated HVAC and electrical systems and that sort of thing over time. And wasn't necessarily meant to address the issues that we're talking about today, which is increased operating costs to maintain service levels, deal with inflationary pressures, and deal with the revenue challenges that include lower reimbursement rates and higher levels of unreimbursed services. And so without a mill levy increase now, given the financial pressures, as you talked about on the 26th, the ambulance district fund balance would go negative by 2023 without ongoing subsidy from the county's general fund. We are currently providing a subsidy through the general fund to the ambulance district. The board did that to support the request for an additional crew, additional ambulance to be staffed so that we would have 2 ambulances able to respond in the district. I know Gabe can speak more to how that's working if the goal, or if the board has questions. The goal that we set in establishing the mill levy that will be proposed here in a second is to provide adequate funding to maintain the current service levels that we're providing to the community, and they are high levels of service. To be able to maintain those through different economic cycles. We know we go through some ups and downs, especially in decade kind of cycles. And importantly, to support equipment and vehicle replacements on a cash basis without taking on debt. Particularly for the ambulance fund, the equipment and vehicle replacements represent significant investments, and Gabe can speak to the wear and tear that's put on them, covering the full breadth of the district. So, taking those factors into consideration, staff is proposing a total mill levy for the Aspen Ambulance District of 1.1 mills. This is based on a 10-year pro forma. Ann Driggers is here and will be able to go into that in a little bit more detail. I believe a paper copy has been handed out to the board as well as emailed earlier today. Under that pro forma, the district would have a projected fund balance at year 10 equal to 110 days cash on hand. You will see in the pro forma that the cash on hand is fairly significant for the ambulance district. However, that's in anticipation largely of the significant capital and vehicle equipment replacements that would be done on a cash basis and holding adequate reserves to weather economic downturns and maintain this critical public safety service. So what that mill levy means, as the board is aware, property taxes are based on multiplying the mill levy against an assessed value. And this would equate to an increase of $110 per 100,000 in assessed value. But the assessed value is calculated by taking the actual value as determined by our assessor's department, and for residents, multiplying that actual value by 6.95% and for commercial properties, 29%. So a home with a $1 million actual value would pay a total of $76.45 a year to support the ambulance, or about 21 cents a day. A commercial property with a $1 million actual value would pay a total of $319 a year, or about 87 cents a day. That does not represent the increase. That represents the total tax burden under the 1.1 mils. The increase is roughly just above half of that, or just below half of that. So I'm going to pause there because this is based on a pro forma that has some complexities to it, and I would invite Anne to talk us through a little bit about how staff arrived at the pro forma.
Okay, let's see if there's questions at this point, or should we let Ann? Okay.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. Ann Driggers, Finance Director. And I was ably helped with Connie Baker here, who has also worked with Jeanette, the Finance Director of CFO at the Aspen Valley Hospital, to come up with this 10-year projection. Last week, I think, when we had presented it to you, we discussed potentially doing a ballot question that would have an minimum amount that we needed to begin with, and that we would increase it gradually over the time period based upon inflation and new growth in the assessed value. Unfortunately, after speaking with Bond Counsel, we were informed that this methodology would be considered a phased-in tax and therefore wasn't really allowed under Tabor rules in the Constitution, and that doing a mill levy increase, as we have presented here, is really our only option unless we set a sunset date on the ambulance program, which I'm sure we don't want to set an end date to the ambulance. So it makes it a little more tricky with revenue forecasting because we don't have a set amount knowing exactly what's going to come in each year. So we looked at the projections for the next 10 years and made some estimates in our assessed value. We know that next year it's probably going to go up. Then probably 2 years later it might go down, and then generally probably a steady increase after that. And looking at the whole 10-year period, calculated how much revenue the ambulance district would need, and then basically applying a mill levy that would achieve that number. So with a mill levy, the revenue streams basically go up and down in response to the assessed valuation, which is at a certain level right now, but then it's going to go up, probably go down. So that's essentially how we arrived at the 1.1 mils, which, interesting enough, is only slightly more than what was actually originally assessed in 82, and then we went down, and I think obviously that was, we needed to be back up in the range where we originally had a mill levy on the ambulance district. So
When we first established the
Yeah.
ambulance district. Goes around, comes around. Okay, questions from the board? Kelly, I can't see you.
Question for
Did
Gabe.
you have a question? No.
I'd ask one.
I guess I do have one question. Do we ordinarily buy all of our vehicles in cash?
The short answer, Kelly, is yes. We typically try to avoid the financing because ultimately, once you lock into that for the long term, you're locking into an interest payment on top of the actual cost of the vehicle. For entities that have a real cash flow issue, that can be a viable option. But when you have a structural deficit issue like we do at the ambulance district, it never really pencils out. So it'd have to be a short-term cash flow issue that would make the financing make sense, and that's not where we are here. But we generally try and go pay-as-you-go, what's called pay-as-you-go cash purchase on both capital maintenance and equipment and vehicle purchases. And then it's only on major capital like facilities and such that we tend to finance those out.
Okay. Greg, I think in you, and then Steve?
Yeah, I guess just for Gabe and John, how far ahead when you're purchasing, as we're looking at electrification in a big way, and I'm not sure how electrification will affect the ambulance operations. I know at some point vehicles may become electric, but there are other things as well. And I'm just wondering, has that been anticipated in projecting 10 years out? Are you pretty confident that, whatever's coming our way, we're not quite sure what, but it's probably going to be much lower carbon intensive ways of getting energy and moving things around? Are we able to participate in that?
I think the short answer is yes, we are able to anticipate it. Keep in mind that for our ambulances and our support vehicles, as Patty mentioned, I think just a minute ago, we're hard on them. We have a lot of off-road use for our ambulances, our command trucks, things like that. So we have a fairly regular replacement schedule. We'll theoretically never have an ambulance that's older than 8 years. That's when we start to find that we start to have maintenance problems with them. So that being said, when we talk about moving to an electric fleet, as we said in our last meeting, that timing has to be right. We have to make sure that that we never are left energy-less on the side of the road. So we're waiting for that moment to have it really be a proven system. But with the fact that we replace ambulances at a very regimented rate, and we actually are constantly watching that, it would be very easy for us to make that move to pop one into our fleet as we move forward. As I said before, probably our first move will be more of our support vehicles. They have a little bit less length of distance that we would be required to take with them. That being said, a lot of what we use them for is wildland fires, and we may not have electricity for a little while. So again, sussing that out and making sure that we make the right move at the right time. But I think that just with our replacement schedule, it is very easy for us to look, a couple of years in advance as we go to purchase those and determine the need for those. Now, the question on cost for those EVs is going to be really interesting, right? And I think that, I think the way the cost structure is currently for an electric vehicle, is certainly going to change over the next few years, which may make it easier or more difficult to purchase them. And then, of course, depending on the size of the vehicle, right? An ambulance is obviously going to be, dramatically more expensive than a command vehicle for us. So I don't know if I have a great answer for you other than to say that we are a fairly, lightweight group that we can make quick changes. We can evaluate them as they come. Most of the EV companies we're finding realize that emergency services is a good thing. To have EV vehicles for. So most of them, if you read into them a little bit, they're looking at EV for emergency vehicles.
Right.
As we've seen here in Aspen, right? We're already getting some, but for our purposes, with life safety in mind, we're ready to make that decision when we know that it's a safe decision to make.
Right, and then you talked about the cost as well, because anticipate, how do you anticipate what it's going to cost at this point? Yeah.
Exactly.
And you'd also have the infrastructure at the barn
There's
to
that.
charge.
Don't call
And then
it
you
a
also
barn.
to get those buses charged in that barn.
Oh.
And then you'd have to think about, so you have an ambulance that's gone out, comes back, needs to be charged, and they get another call.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot to think about. But you'd already mentioned at our last discussion that the ambulance district is open to, when it's possible, transitioning to more EVs out for them to use,
Really are.
whether it be your command vehicles, and in the future, the ambulance.
It's a matter of time, right? It really is before we
But
look
we'd
at
have to
something
think
else,
about
but-
the infrastructure in place.
It'd just be a shame to have to come back with another bond, or another tax increase to pay for it,
I agree.
So how do we anticipate that?
So The other thing to keep in mind, there's a lot of unknowns, obviously, on this, and Ann could answer this question, but Greg, I believe we basically used the estimates for replacing the ambulance, the internal combustion engine ambulances on roughly the schedule that Gabe had laid out at about every 8 years. It is likely that when electrics do become viable for this service, they will cost more. There will also probably be some grant funding types of opportunities around those to help offset that. And I think, the discussion right now is also that the electric vehicles, you may be able to extend the replacement schedule on those. Much fewer moving parts in an electric vehicle, less wear and tear, and those chassis may just last a little bit longer and be reliable a little bit longer. So all of those are unknown or unproven factors at this time, but we did base the pro forma and basically our current replacements, thinking that some of these other factors may play in and make up for any differences.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Steve?
Okay, I have a couple of questions. The first one is kind of a basic question. Since the ambulance district works so closely with Aspen Valley Hospital, I started wondering if it might make sense to merge the ambulance district into the hospital district. But then I couldn't find a map of the hospital district boundaries to see. I think it's way huger than your ambulance district boundaries. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. They are not the same at all. The hospitals district goes up into Snowmass and down into Basalt a little bit more. And then of course our district extends up Independence Pass as well, where there's no homes or infrastructure up there, so we still have to cover the road.
I was thinking if it were the exact same boundaries, that might merit discussion, and that's what I suspected, that it was just so different that it wouldn't be worth talking about that type of a merger.
Because the hospital district overlaps the Carbondale, no, the Basalt, the rural, what do you call that? The Reefer?
Yes.
Roaring Fork Emergency District.
Right.
Snowmass is covered in that, so you'd be overlapping another ambulance
The only
district.
way it might make sense would be if all the ambulance districts were
correct.
merged
You would
together
have to
into
do a big change over.
the hospital.
And all
I
the fire
have to
districts.
tell you,
And-
Steve, one of the most important things that I love to tell people is, as odd as our district is to have, be a county agency that's managed by a hospital, we get the best of all worlds. And I got to say, I go around the state and talk to other EMS districts that are, either one or another or third service, and they're all missing something. And I'm so very proud of what we have here. I know it's odd, I know it's funky, but in the end, we really do get the best of both worlds. It's amazing. It works great. The
It looks like
clinical
our
aspect
ambulance
alone.
district more mirrors the fire district.
It does. We're a little different in a few little corners,
But it
but
more
it
mirrors
does mirror
that.
the fire district a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, we have like a world-class ambulance system here for a world-class community, which is
We do.
really unique for the country. Maybe there are others that are comparable in other places, but
There's nobody
we have
like
something
us, Steve.
special here, I think. So, okay, that
And
really-
answered
and
my
really
In many
question
ways,
on
in
that.
many ways.
Now, my second question has to do with the ballot question language. To me, it is confusing because it says shall be increased up to the 2.4 million annually for the first full year, but then in the subsequent years, it would be at the rate of 0.599 mil increase. Which then, when I'm looking at the chart, trying to figure out, well, what number is it? Is that 2,443,901? Is that the absolute maximum that can be collected in all future years? Or is the additional .599 mills in future years, what determines how much money is collected?
Well, yes, to answer your first question, this is basically just tackles the ballot question just tackles the increase. So this will be in addition to the existing mill levy. So the numbers in here all refer to the increase over the existing mill levy. So it's just the increase piece. We're asking the taxpayers to vote on the increase, not the existing mill levy, because that's already been voted in and we're not planning on getting rid of it. We're just asking them to increase it. So the numbers all reflect the increase. How we arrived at the total of the 1.1, which is the existing mill levy plus the 0.599, is based upon the financial projections that we did over 10 years. So basically this will allow us to collect enough revenue that averages out over the 10-year period that they'll be able to, sustain operations and purchase capital equipment as needed.
And this language pretty much mirrors the language in 2014, just the numbers change.
So when I read this, I just pretend I'm Joe Public, who doesn't understand things very well, and I read this and it's confusing to me that it sounds like, well, what is the actual figure? Because you're put in two different options in future years is the way I read it. To me, it's confusing. And I take it that this was drafted by the Bond
Council, correct. And I don't disagree. It is the language that is required by Tabor, essentially. And we went back and forth, and, the original question I had drafted was decided that it wasn't compliant with Tabor. And, I thought that was a lot more understandable and made more financial sense. But Bond Council and John Ely we've had several conversations over the last 4 or 5 days. And this is how it should be written.
So maybe a red flag just went up in my head. It's probably intentional by Tabor to make the ballot questions seem confusing so the voters would tend to vote against tax increases because the ballot language ends up being confusing to them. Is that, I don't know, that's just supposition, but I would not be at all surprised if that was intentional at some point in the creation of Tabor.
Well, and if you read the ballot language from 2014, it pretty much does the increase in the dollar amount and the property tax levy of up to, and then, it's written pretty much the same. This is just a little lengthier than the new one is, so. It's consistent with the language we've used in the past, which passed by a sizable margin. So that's what we're aiming for again this time around.
So I think the messaging has to be that the important thing is that the ambulance district needs the mill levy increase to provide sustained operations that are being paid for.
And then it's justified by the
reasons. Don't try to
reasons.
explain the ballot language necessarily besides just a couple of the key points in it.
Well, and I think that justification has been clearly outlined with the increased cost, decrease in revenue, and our needs to have 24/7 2 ambulances and 2 crews to provide services so we don't have that gap and have to rely on mutual aid and pulling from other jurisdictions so everybody's right there and ready to go. Greg, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks. It is confusing to read it. And are we saying that we can't state what the actual mill levy will be? Because this is an additional ad valorem, right? On top of what's already there.
The way I understand it, and I don't appear to have any attorneys in the room who could probably better answer the question, is we do not want to confuse the question. The question has to be only about the increase because the existing mill levy is is already approved and in place.
Right.
And so the question is just to ask about the increase.
We don't want to mess with the other one that was passed.
it
I
seems
had
really
originally
disingenuous to me.
had two numbers in, and then they said
They wouldn't
it
let
had
you
to
do
be
that.
taken out. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that, it just doesn't seem clear at all, does it?
And so the board knows, this is on our agenda for tomorrow. We will have, John Ely will be present he'll be here tomorrow, so we can further discuss that.
Another
clarification.
question also came in from a constituent who says, are there any other ways to raise revenue for the ambulance district through fees, et cetera, that would not be considered a tax, so the tax burden doesn't go to all of us, property owners, but goes to the events and organizations that are using it that may not be taxpayers?
The Home Rule Charter prescribes the Aspen Ambulance District can only collect property taxes, ad valorem taxes, which is basically a tax on the ownership of assets. Transactional taxes like sales tax or any other tax are not permitted within the Home Rule Charter.
And that includes a use fee,
I think our fees are already set
per
at
hour
Fees are already in here.
maximum reasonable for our location.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, and I actually saw the email as well, Greg, and so thank you for bringing that up. I think one of the other things that was brought up in there are there other things that we can do? Can we raise certain fees that we charge already? And as Patty just said, we really are at an upper limit for most of those. Certainly for our medical fees, for the transport
Compared
fees.
to who?
The easiest way to explain it is that, from a medical billing perspective, if I can charge any number you want for the transport to the hospital, but the insurance companies will only pay a certain amount, period. Medicare, for example, is one of those one of our government payers that is an increasing number in our community. Medicare, I believe at this point our number's around 26, 28%. That's all they'll pay of our bill, right? So that's the collection rate that we're getting off of them. Now, I could raise our transport bill to $25,000 if you wanted. I'm still only going to get the $200 that they give me. So it doesn't really matter how much we raise those costs at all. It really is based on the payers, the insurance companies, things like that. And while we are really excited that we have more people in our community that have insurance of some sort, and there's lots of options out there for them now, but those numbers still stay the same, and it's fairly low. Our fear, of course, is that all of our payers will eventually follow suit with Medicare and Medicaid and have those low numbers in the 20s, percentage range. So it really doesn't matter that we raise ours much more. And that was always kind of our key, is that we raised ours up so that we hope that if you were a true user of the system, that you would pay a little bit more your fair share. But at this point, we've raised it beyond where we're getting any better out of it.
And they can't collect privately from those
That is correct.
clients because of
That's
Medicare
correct.
and Medicaid.
I'm going to suggest next that we implement, e-bikes with rickshaw gurneys on the back.
I'm going to start working out. Thanks, Greg.
And you're going to pedal them
Yeah.
through Shell Bluffs and back.
Just hope you're not waiting to get a call.
Right.
Kelly, please.
You on CPR at the same time.
Yeah.
We can make this work.
That's a side hack on the
Yeah, there you go.
sidecar. Okay, Kelly?
Thanks. Yeah. I just want to drill in a little bit because the email we received was really focused on special event fees and whether there's a one fee that applies to everybody or a sliding scale fee or something that's, marked by the size of the event. So I think I'd like to understand that a little better and answer that question publicly here a little bit better.
Great.
And then also I just would say in terms of clarifying language, we do have an opportunity to submit comments for the Tabor notice, which goes out to all the voters. Excuse me. And it just can explain in clear language what a ballot measure does and what the proponents and the opponents of it say. I'm sort of unclear on when the BOCC sort of transitions to campaign mode and what we're allowed and not allowed to do. So maybe we can get some clarification on that today or tomorrow. But I just want to throw it out there that we can give the voters a clearer description of what we're trying to do. through that, and I think a lot of people do read it.
Yeah, Kelly, and I think the clarification on when what the board can do, but even more what county staff can do when that line is drawn, which might be tomorrow on the second ballot, the first reading. But the BOCC has a greater flexibility. So we can have John Ely clarify that tomorrow. That's a really good thought, Kelly. So that we know, staff knows, and the public knows.
And let me take your first question, Kelly, about special events. So special events is something that we've always felt important to provide good medical care to those who come to our community, regardless of what reason you come here. If you're coming to ski, if you're coming to X Games, if you're coming to a bike race, to Food and Wine, whatever, we want you to have the best care possible, and the same as we provide our own citizens. So we've always felt like providing that care to special events is important. So I'll say that first. Second thing is we do not have a sliding scale. Our fee structure is based on the type of service and the amount of service that we provide. So for example, a couple of the different types of service we provide, the first is what we call single resource, which is just me with a bunch of equipment, and I show up at your event, just hang out, just in case something were to happen. Most of the time those are smaller events, usually not a whole lot of high risk. Maybe a classical music concert, something like that, right? Where it's, not a whole lot of high risk, but it's nice to have somebody there because you've got a few people in attendance. The second thing we provide is full ambulance service. So where we will bring an ambulance out, so you've got the full breadth of an ambulance and the equipment inside it, along with a paramedic and an EMT or two paramedics that are staffing that ambulance, and they have the ability to do rapid care very quickly on site, ready to go. And to be able to transport as well. Now that we would recommend for something maybe that had a little bit higher risk. So, rather than a classical concert, if
Ruggerfest.
Ruggerfest came. Heavy metal, there you go. I was going to date myself with the music I just was thinking of, so I won't do that. But we'll think about different things. And what we typically do, it is really difficult in the special event world to determine what each event needs, right? We've tried to build some sort of a system to say, if X equals Y, then you get this many ambulances. What we typically do is have a really nice sit-down meeting with those events, discuss with them their safety concerns, the city, the county, everybody's safety concerns, and we try and meet those as best we can. So we do charge a fee for each of those types of service. We charge a separate fee for what we call a complex event. So for example, X Games, which is over many, many days, over snow and lots of different transport means, it's a very complex event, so we charge extra fee for that. We charge prep fees and takedown fees and things like that. So I really feel like that we've done a good job of controlling those fees. We are right where we should be compared to other other tourist communities and their fee structures as well. We typically look at Vail and Summit counties who have some of the larger events as well on snow, kind of the same realm as we are. And I think we're right where we should be for those fees. It's a balancing act, right? We still want those events to come, and we don't want to scare them away, but we also want to provide them with the best care and make them mitigate any fees or any issues. The nice thing for me is if you take some of those events that do actually create business for us, by us putting an ambulance on site, we're able to control those and make sure that they don't affect the rest of the system, right? I don't want it to affect, just because, Ruggerfest is happening, it shouldn't affect you getting an ambulance, just like you would any other day of the week. So we are certainly, we want to make them pay their fair share, and they certainly cover those costs and then some, so.
You're keeping pace with inflation and all
Can
that.
anybody keep pace with inflation?
Yeah, that's the question.
We're doing our best, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We usually evaluate those on a yearly basis, just as a more of a courtesy to a lot of the event planners that are planning some of those larger events way out. But we usually evaluate those yearly, those fees.
Great, thank you.
Kelly, does that answer your question? I know.
Kelly, are you good with that?
Yeah, I think mostly. I think the follow-up question that I would anticipate is, well, what are they? And I don't personally think that the fee structure could be changed enough to make up $2.5 million a year. But as you said, everyone is struggling with inflation. So these questions just get harder to, we have to really promote it and be honest about how we're otherwise raising revenue. Excuse me for the distraction, sorry.
That's okay, Kelly. Other questions from the board? So, John, the question before us is moving this on to our agenda tomorrow, where it's already noticed. Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah, Patty, you're exactly right. We just wanted to have an opportunity for the board to process how staff got to the proposed mill levy. The proposed ballot language, as we've talked about, does not have as much flexibility as the board might like due to Tabor requirements, but wanted you to have an opportunity to see that and ask questions, and also give direction, you know, if there are any changes that we need to be anticipating or making before the board formally considers this tomorrow. That would be great to know this afternoon. So.
Yeah, and I just want to let the board know that I've been working on this, reaching out to members of the community from other ambulance districts, fire districts, hospital, to garner support ahead, because we can't do this alone. And we'll be setting up an account, campaign account issue, a campaign issue account, and hoping we can get some contributions there so we can do a little bit of advertising and door-to-door and get out there, meet and greet. And I think we're going to call it Help is on the Way. So I didn't want to do Friends of the Ambulance District, but so this one is a little more creative, a little more fun. But so that's where we stand. Is the board have further questions or concerns, or hopefully when I know that John Ely will be present tomorrow so we can get clarification on the legal issues. Are we good? Mm-hmm. I know it's not easy at this point in time with the economy around the country and the hits we're taking here at home. So, but you know, you never know when you're going to need that ambulance, and you want to make sure that everybody's there and ready to come. Help is on the way. Okay, any other questions? Francie?
I'm all good, and that's cool that you're starting that campaign, it's
Yeah.
just like any other election. And this is an example why we should wait a year for the other ballot possibility for affordable housing.
Yeah, that, and the, and I've looked at, the city has 2 tax questions on. One is to extend their open space and trails with no sunset in perpetuity, and the other one, I believe, is their lodging or short-term rental. Yeah, I missed their meeting on that one, but I did hear their open space one. So, and I don't believe there's anything coming from the hospital or the school district that we are aware of. No notice was given, so.
That we're aware of.
So, looks like the ballot is going to be pretty clean, other than the candidates. We'll see where that goes. So, okay, we're good? So we'll see you guys tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. So we have caught back up. We're a little ahead. Does the board want to go? We're scheduled for a break. Does the board want a little longer break? And we can come back at, what was our next time? 3 o'clock? No, 3:15, I think.
3:15.
Yeah, 3:15, is that good?
Sure.
Okay. So Grassroots, we will be back at 3:15.
It's a long break.
That's a long break.
Well, want to come back at 3? Can we do that? Or throw things off too much?
I'd rather get back at 3.
Okay,
End
okay,
earlier.
we're gonna come back at 3. Welcome back. This is the Board of County Commissioners work session on Tuesday, August the 9th, 2022. We are at our upcoming regular meeting items continued section. It's a prep for our joint meeting with the Colorado Department of Transportation, which we're having on August the 23rd. And I want the board to know that when I met with CDOT at the ribbon cutting for the roundabout, I asked them if they would like more time, and they said, yes, of course. And Brian Pettit is here because I think Brian has invited some additional guests to this meeting.
That's right. So CDOT hasn't had the annual meetings for a couple of years, so this is the first time they will be seeing the board.
That's amazing.
Since then. They did want to make sure that the city of Aspen, the town of Snowmass Village, and the town of Basalt are all invited to the meeting. So that invitation has been extended. Rather than have CDOT have multiple meetings, they would rather have the county meeting be the regional meeting for everyone. So the purpose of today is really just to talk to the board, find out what kind of questions you might have, if there's research that CDOT needs to complete or some preparation on their side needs to be done so you have a richer conversation. That's what I'd like to walk away from here today. So it's really, what would you want to talk to CDOT about so I can take some notes and then let them know.
Okay, I had spent some time and I kind of created a list that I will throw out there, and then the board can jump in and add it or subtract it, or I know, Greg, you're going to bring up cleanup along the highway. So I think we need to ask about the issues ongoing with the cleanup of the highway. Not just the Dalwhinnie signage that's up. Are they still participating in the program? That's a question I would have. Also, the cost, if the county took over cleanup, say from the landfill to the airport, if the county just did it ourselves, what would that cost be? Would CDOT reimburse us possibly to make sure we get it done? The other thing was also the sweeping at Shale Bluffs. After that, we had a slide there and it kind of filled up behind the Jersey barriers. So anything that's coming down is spilling out over the barriers, even if it's behind the chain link or the fencing that's up there, the bruise nets. So we need to find out, because I know they on occasion will come up and clean that out, and I think we need to get some attention to that, and then if we can get that whole shoulder there cleaned off, because Greg's been getting flat tires.
It's rolled out now.
Yeah, and now that he's going to be hauling an ambulance toboggan behind him when he rides into town. Yeah. The other question, Brian, and I bet you can help me with this, is the Glenwood Canyon detours. They were supposed to send, I think, you an invitation or a notice about their meeting they had about Cottonwood Pass. Did you receive that?
I did. I was not able to attend the meeting that they had about Cottonwood.
Okay, so we just need to be kept in that loop. And is there any way we can find out the numbers of semis that have been ticketed over the past in the last couple years to see where we stand? I think the sheriff's office should have that, because I have a feeling those numbers will show the spike, and they should be coming back down again with better signage and enforcement. So if we could maybe ask the sheriff office for that.
Ticketed on the pass, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, for semis.
Okay, yep. I could check.
We also had a call from a lady up 133 about the chip and seal that the CDOT did on the highway, and the shoulders and the lack of shoulders or the drop off. Didn't you and I talk about that?
Yeah, I don't think they've done any chip and seal lately. This would have been in the past, and
she seemed to made it sound like it was recent.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Yeah, and Francie's issue with Snowmass Canyon, there's those ponds that are created at the east-west turnaround, you know, that ramp that's kind of by the CDOT maintenance building that's up on the hillside. There's those low places in the highway that really, really collect significant amounts of water, and you hydroplane all over the place when you go through them.
Did you get any more reports of that this this season, Brian?
I know that they've patched the holes, but there is a perennial low spot there that's gonna collect water, so we can talk to CDOT about that. I haven't had any complaints about it lately, but I drive through there all the time, and it's definitely a low spot.
Yeah, because sometimes you could go fishing in there, I swear. My little car, hydroplanes everywhere. So those are kind of the items other than, they'll give us their presentation as they usually do. But Kelly, did you have?
Yeah, two things. One, I wonder if they're doing any comprehensive planning regarding wildlife overpasses, and if they are aware of the biodiversity study, and what that showed us. I'm not sure if that data has all been published yet, but I think it would be a really good thing for them to know if they are doing some comprehensive planning that might involve Highway 82 in the future. And then I wonder, it'd be interesting to have a conversation related to any thoughts that they're having about records of decision, if there is a modified approach that we might be able to take on some of the concerns we have both on the entrance to Aspen as well as the airport to Basalt.
Great, thank you.
And Brian, we did talk to them about the wildlife crossing issues, and that our highway was not ranked high enough, but Kelly's right, maybe that new biodiversity study will give them more data in their numbers. And the fact that we were then gonna ask or look into just at least doing some signage, the flashing light signage, because I'm not sure if we will be able to get underpasses or overpasses. So, yeah, Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Kelly, thanks for bringing that up. I was gonna mention the wildlife overpasses. I do think we need to circle back with them, because I've heard that Highway 2 actually is fairly high incidence rate for wildlife conflicts, and so I just wanna make sure the numbers are accurate and that we're on their radar somewhere. So many people bring it up with me, so it's an important thing for me. And regarding the Shale Bluffs, yeah, definitely. We're contemplating putting in $20 million worth of bicycle bridges that really would probably be seasonal. And I thought for a fraction of that cost, they could just clean up those shoulders and maybe help us come up with solutions that might actually make it safer for many bicycles who do negotiate the 2 minutes of terror, as I call it, as I ride through Shale Bluffs. And when we have that sloughing shale, it makes it even harder, because then you're actually veering out into the lane. And it seems to me that that's something that we can figure this out for much less than the cost of those big bridges that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I'm all in support of that.
So there was the wildlife overpasses, the actual cleanup, and then I'm just not sure, how are we doing with Smith Hill Road intersection, and the Juniper Hill intersection 982 and Smith Hill seems to be, I think that's the most dangerous intersection in the county. I think I've heard that, and I'm not sure. I know we've had some fatalities there, so that certainly is an argument. And it'd just be nice to know if they're thinking about that and what they're thinking.
From a safety standpoint.
From a safety standpoint, whether it's turn lane changes or signaling changes or traffic calming. The average speed on 82 now is about 70, I think.
If not more.
And traffic calming, certainly through Shale Bluffs again, if the traffic was going a little slower through there, it might benefit everyone. Because I think it's about 70 now. Thanks, Brian. That'll fill the time.
It's a good list so far.
Steve has.
So I'm curious how the ice warning system in Snowmass Canyon has been working. Has it reduced the number of accidents at the entrance to the canyon? And I know there's still a high level of accidents at Old Snowmass Light, which probably is related more to the light than to ice, just people coming too fast and they come around the corner and their vehicles stop there and then maybe there is some ice or not, I'm not sure. So I'd be curious about that. To expand a little on the Highway 133 chip and seal thing, the messages we've gotten over the years from the bicyclers was that there used to be a paved shoulder on 133, and they felt very safe riding on 133 because they could ride, you know, to the right of the white line. And then the CDOT narrowed the pavement when they were doing their chip and seal projects, so the paved shoulder disappeared. The actual paved part of the roadway got narrower, and it eliminated the place that the bicycles could ride on where they felt safe. So now bicyclers do not feel safe at all riding on 133. And if CDOT could, from BRB up to wherever, at least as far as Redstone, I would think, if they could repave the shoulders to provide that, you know, a couple feet of safety margin for the bicyclers, I think that would be much appreciated by the people up there. I think it would also make it much safer for the cars because it gives them, you know, if somebody swerves into your lane a little bit, it gives them a couple feet to get over the line to the right where their wheel's not going to drop off the pavement onto the what used to be paved shoulder. So it's not just for the bicyclers, I think just for the automobile traffic also, because people drive too fast and the road is narrower than it used to be.
So Brian, I'm just going to ask real quick, have you had any input from any of the other jurisdictions as to questions they might have, or they're just going to kind of come along for the ride and we'll see what happens?
Yeah, nothing so far. So we'll wait and see if they have questions. We'll certainly submit them to CDOT, but
Okay.
we'll see who shows up.
So we're going to be expecting the CDOT crew in person, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. So they can drive the highway and see all these issues before they get here.
I have another one.
Hopefully it's raining in Snowmass Canyon.
If I could also, Brian, just, I know we're anticipating adding more stoplights on 82 in the vicinity of the airport, Public Works, the lumberyard, and I'm not sure, CDOT must be in the loop on this, it's on their highway, but do they know about this and you know, what are they thinking? Because we talked, like, is it Public Works? I think there was talk of a light there, and then a light at the lumberyard, in addition to the light at the business center, perhaps. So there may be 3 lights within, what, a third of a mile, is what it sounds like.
CDOT was part of the access control plan when it was approved many years ago, so I'll make sure that it's on their radar for the meeting.
Yeah, because I hope I'm not sitting on this board when they put in 2 more signals in that stretch of the highway. We'll have to see what happens there. Francie?
I'm good.
Okay. Kelly? Okay. Brian?
Well, we have 13 items to send to CDOT, so that'll be a good start. And yeah, it is the 23rd of August at 1 o'clock, and we have an hour and a half scheduled. So hopefully we have enough time to collaborate and get together on some of these items. And while, just so you know, while I have some of the answers to these questions, we'll just deal with them when CDOT's in the room. And so it's a little richer conversation.
Great.
One thing we could give them kudos for is the expansion of the Mustang bus system. As there are now more options going clear to Grand Junction, and you don't just have the one option to go from Glenwood eastbound. There's, you know, 2 different times of the day that you can catch a bus. So I appreciate that, and I think they should be thanked for that.
That's their program?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. And maybe they can give us an update on future expansion possibilities with Mustang. I think it's been a huge success.
And in my brief conversation with them about this meeting, their plan was not to go through, I don't believe, all the data in the booklet that they'll give us, like they usually do. I think their plan was more just to have an open conversation.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they used to do a presentation that lasted 30 minutes. I think they just want to get right to
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
with you all.
So we appreciate that. Okay.
Will that booklet be given to us in advance as part of the packet?
They usually bring them up with
It has not
them.
in the past, but they usually walk in with it and pass it out at that time.
Because it's kind of like gives all the different districts and what their coverage is, so it's not just technically specific just to Pitkin County.
Maybe we could request getting those booklets ahead of time from them earlier. Just have them send them up here and have it be part of our packet.
Well,
can
The
certainly
link
do
is
that.
fine for me.
what's that, Kelly?
Oh, a link is fine for me, an electronic link.
Yeah, why don't we just see if there's an electronic link, and those who want to pull it up ahead of time can do so. All right.
One last thing, just like a report, how's the stoplight system on Independence Pass doing? It always seems very temporary to me, and I'm just wondering is that a permanent
That's
thing?
a good question. I did talk to the director. She actually asked me about it. We were there with the guy from the Federal Highway Authority. He was thinking, well, let's just blow up the side of the pass and widen those two stretches of the Narrows. And when I came back over that way the other day, I kind of was stopped there looking at the massive granite boulders, and it would probably close Independence Pass for a whole summer season. And so, they were thinking, she was thinking that a more permanent facility with the lights is probably going to be the best idea. And it don't wait that long, and it just seems weird to be driving along the beautiful pass and there's a red light. It kind of takes you a little off guard.
It does, but it seems to me it's so much safer and faster.
Yeah.
You don't have all those freaked out people coming down and stopping in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I think it works really well.
And you really don't have to wait that long, but blowing up that side of the mountain to widen the road, I'm like,
It's okay to have places that are slow.
yeah.
We don't have to rush everywhere all the time,
Slow down,
especially
enjoy
in
the
that
view.
beautiful place.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anything else, board? Thanks for bringing that up, though.
That's 14.
Well, probably let's go for 20. Okay, we're good, I think, Brian. Anybody, if you have any other questions for Brian, you can go ahead and let him know before the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We need to then move on to review of future agendas. And I want to make sure that Steve and Greg let Charlotte know their dates that they're going to be out of town. And on the 24th, Francie, you will not be here?
I am going to be at the Wolf reintroduction meetings from 9:30 until 12. And then I'm probably going to Zoom in at 1 here. Or I might just wait till 2:30 when the Wolf meetings are over, but I'll be here for part of it.
Okay, part of the regular meeting?
Yes, but I do have something for future agendas. when we
Okay,
get
yeah,
around
go
to
ahead.
it. When are we gonna talk about what recommendations we're making to the Growth Advisory Committee, because it's coming up really fast?
Well, we're having, didn't we already discuss that?
I don't know. I didn't. I
We
wasn't,
didn't
privy
have a
to that,
full-on thing, like, this is what we're gonna say to them, this is what we're looking for.
I'm
It's all
meeting with
about-
Jeffrey on the 17th.
Who's Jeffrey?
The chairman of P&Z.
Oh, Jeffrey, okay.
I'm meeting with Jeffrey and staff on the 17th to discuss the meeting on the 18th.
Right.
So
But we
if
were gonna discuss as a group what kind of guidance we wanted to give these guys. I
Well, I
thought that
don't
was
think
what,
we have that planned between now and the 18th.
we don't. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Kara's on vacation here. Let me see what I can find out for you.
Both Kara and Cindy are out until
Yeah,
the.
yeah, they are.
I mean, I thought that was the whole point of our joint meeting on the 18th, was so that we could provide them guidance and give them guardrails for where we want them to go. And
Yeah, can we, it seems to me like we discussed that.
Okay, let me
At our
let
joint
me
meeting with P&Z the last time.
see what I can find out. I'll do my best to try to find
Yeah.
something. Kara will be back on Monday. But
And
that's,
Cindy won't be back
that's gonna be
until
pretty late.
Well,
Monday or
Tuesday would be really the only day we could do
Yeah.
it,
And I
because
think
the meeting's on
Tuesday-
Friday, right?
And Tuesday, I believe we have, the meeting's on Thursday. And Tuesday, the 16th, we have a full agenda with social services, staff presentation, APCHA, and staff update. Is that day, Kelly, next Tuesday?
That may be your only opportunity if
Yeah,
there
then
was
we'd
some
have to kick
expectation
off
that
board
was gonna take
membership
place,
reports
so-
again and put it in there, so.
Okay.
Let me know we'll have to find something by Thursday when we do our agenda meeting.
Okay.
Well, what do the rest of you guys think? What do you think,
Let's
Kelly?
find
Where
out
are
from
we gonna
staff
have
what
a-
they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean,
I know at one point Cindy said that they were going to be looking for, some sort of introductory comments from board members.
Well, for those of us who are there, and Jeffrey and I are gonna figure out how to run that with the new committee members. But, as far as that information, we'll try and touch base with, maybe
Yeah,
Alex,
well-
is he here?
I mean, I sort of had a feeling that we were gonna have a definite sort of description of where, the kinds of places we wanted to go, what we were looking at.
I don't think we're gonna we wanna get to this house size, how do you get, what do you?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying things that we want them to look at. I mean, we talked about
And goals.
doing that and, and why we're doing this and,
I thought
So-
that was, and on the website with all that information.
Yeah, let me circle back
Yeah,
with
let's-
Alex,
let's
see what we
find-
can
There's
find out.
information on the website that you can go to that I spent quite
But
a
I
bit
think
of
those
time.
are the categories of
Yeah.
the things we're asking them to
That
look
was
at.
from before. It's not new, but it's from before.
Yeah.
And,
Well, let's run it by and see, and then we'll
I'll
just
reach
figure out some time on Tuesday,
Okay.
if need be.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
I don't think, we'll just have to figure it out.
Yeah, we can do that. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, just for clarity on the meeting, when we get to the meeting,
Yeah.
so we know what we're doing.
Do we have a place yet for it? Does anybody know?
I think it's at Dorhosier,
Oh, I think that's right. Where's that?
at Aspen Meadows.
Yes, I think I did see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I
do
don't know, we have all
quite a
these
few
meetings,
items.
and then we have, okay, I'm gonna let you go. Okay,
One item that I've been anxiously awaiting a report back from Holy Cross Energy, and I don't know if county officials or people from CORE were involved in doing an analysis of potential solar farm sites in Pickens County, or maybe in the whole Roaring Fork Valley. I don't know how big of an area they were looking at, but I would love to get that report back with what they have figured out.
Can we-
Like
yeah.
potential, the highest potential best solar farm sites in the valley.
so that would be a call to Holy Cross,
Yeah.
just to see if
And I
they,
think that's important that we start working on another project somehow, or another, if there are 5 good sites, let's start working on 5 projects. Or
yeah, let's put those projects right in there on our list.
maybe it's, maybe it's not us doing it, maybe it's Primergy or, one of the solar companies maybe are the ones taking the lead on that, but
I know they're
we
working on
want to
some
nudge
already.
them in that direction to try to
Yeah.
get, another solar farm underway.
Certainly check in. As you know, we're part of the microgrid, and the Public Works Master Plan is all going to talk about that with potential airport property, and so
But let's find out what they're doing.
something coming down the road.
And
that way.
doesn't that include a solar farm at the airport?
It does. Well, it could. I mean, we'll assess
Depending
it
on
and see.
everything else
Mhm.
at the airport,
Yeah.
of course.
Well, solar roofs and solar, everything that has a roof will have solar.
If we could expand that just to include possible storage, there's talk of gravity storage systems or pump back hydro. A lot of this stuff is swirling around. It'd be great to hear what they're thinking.
So
And
let's see
certainly
where
we can
they
bring in, we should introduce the new core director who's just started August 1st.
Well, let's
So
see
we'll
where
get
Holy
them in
Cross stands on it, what efforts they've put forward so far, and then we can see what's appropriate for them to come back to
We
us
need Zach back,
for a bigger discussion. Yeah.
That is true.
or a good replacement for Zach.
True.
All right, so Rich, you said,
I do. I've got a number of items here. So, Francie, you mentioned at one point, I believe, with the board at a caucus about having a BOCC meeting in Redstone. Is that right?
we need to
In
have a
September?
BOCC follow-up on short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals, I remember that, but I don't know if there was just an actual board meeting in Redstone?
Well, I think there's a feeling in Redstone that they'd like to have a board meeting there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an issue for me, but since, I mean, maybe we could have a board meeting there and STRs could be a part of it. And that way we would satisfy people who aren't necessarily interested in STRs, but have wanted the board to go over to that part of the valley. But does that mean we have to have a meeting in Meredith also? I mean.
Well, it would, yeah, and the problem is we need to be able to broadcast.
Well, and that's what,
it's a tough spot from up there.
yeah, what Charlotte's asking is if we want to do that, we do need to coordinate with the church there and talk to grassroots
I
about
don't think the
broadcasting.
church lets us
and
use
so-
space anymore there.
Okay.
Well, they might, when they, it's not generally so. You have to be
I think we should have a
religious.
meeting specific to Redstone issues in Redstone. So it would be a
Just rather
special
than a
meeting of
general
this
board
board.
meeting?
Be a special meeting.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like one of our regular work session and we moved everybody to Redstone.
Okay, okay.
It would
Well,
be,
then-
we need to hold that, and we said we would do it sometime this fall.
And we could look at the possibility of using Starlink now. I know people are starting to get it and it's working.
Yeah.
So we might have an option for uplinking a live feed.
We looked at it recently and it was, you couldn't get it for a year.
Yeah.
But there may be
Some people are
somebody
getting
who
it.
has it up there that we could, I don't know how that
It's,
would work.
it's coming. I don't know, may still be too soon, but I know people
well-
are getting it now.
We'll have to figure all that out, but let's come up with a date and.
Okay, so I'm hearing not a full board, like a regular board meeting substituted there. It's just get a
It would be a
get
special
point,
meeting
'cause I
like we
remember
told
the-
Redstone, and
Yeah.
we'll go up there and we will focus
On
on
the
the
STRs.
short-term rentals, but
Okay.
we can also provide time if there's any other issues
Sure.
specific.
I think it would be great if we did it in the evening so that people who are working could be there if they wanted to be. You know, I don't know, like 4 or something like that.
Well, we'll have to figure out, we have to figure out what the board can do to
Yeah,
get
we'll
there and do all that, but we'll
Come
figure
back with some
something out.
options for you.
We've been known to have a meeting up there before specific to
And I would
Redstone.
love to have a site visit, a walk on Redstone Boulevard and have local residents say, point out the houses that are short-term rentals and which ones are the bed and breakfasts and
And which ones are never owner occupied?
So we're gonna have all day in Redstone,
Sounds like a big day.
and then we're gonna go up to the Coal Basin, and then we're gonna,
Well, we could talk about Coal Basin. We could also talk about the
we're
other
gonna walk
issues.
down the
that-
road
Talk about the Duray
with our
Way
dogs.
That's a long hike into,
settlement.
I know, I'm just
the-
kidding.
what's it called?
We have to
Methane
be
poisoning.
reasonable with our time and with staff, but we will set something up. We need to look at a date, and then we'll figure out an agenda.
And we have something else we're talking about today in terms of a site visit, or is it
No,
tomorrow?
that's coming up.
That's tomorrow. Or
That's
is it
tomorrow.
today?
No, that's next week we're talking about it. We're talking about the
Oh, it's
site
next week?
visit to the Turnabout, or whatever that, what are they calling that ranch now up that, next to you?
Oh, it's the,
Turnaround,
they're
Turnabout?
called Turnabout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have a problem with Steve leaving town from the 27th to the 19th, Greg leaving town for 10 days, and staff availability, because Leslie's out of town on the 22nd, and the lady who runs the ranch is pregnant and due with a baby, so, I'm not kidding, so.
so if you do a Danziger Ranch site visit when I'm not there, I've been on the property multiple times and I can look at a map and pretty
Okay.
much visualize
That
what they're
gives us
doing.
some flexibility during
That's
that
tomorrow.
time frame.
No, that's not it. Never mind.
Okay, Airport Advisory Board interviews. Dan's out on the 28th and 24th. I don't know that, or the 23rd and 24th. I don't know that he needs to be there for the board, but it says the board may want to meet on the 5th week or schedule it on 9/6. We only have one applicant so far. Barry Vaughn is the only one that has applied.
There's only one applicant?
Yeah, so far.
Well, after
And
all
we-
that, wow.
Yeah, we did notify the 5 remaining members if they are interested or not. But we could put it out a little bit longer. You know, it's an alternate, so it's not as if, you know,
This is
we're
Rich Berkeley's
hamstrung or
seat?
anything, so, this is, but Charlotte can work on it and we could
I'd
we
put
could
it
work on
out again,
September.
Where was it put out? I didn't see it.
where we usually post them, in the Daily News and online, I would imagine.
And I believe they also went down as far as into Carbondale.
Airport Advisory
Yeah.
Board.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so-
can think of a couple of people that told me they wanted to apply, but.
So
maybe
let's leave it
I'll
open
remind them.
and send it back out again, and then we'll look for a date the first part of September.
Okay, sounds good.
And
Well,
Can
we
you
can
email
do
us the solicitation or the notice, just so we can share that?
Okay. we'll
Was
do
Barry
that.
Vaughn in the first group?
He was in your original group of, that got narrowed down to, I believe, 18 or whatever that number was.
He was in that 18?
He was in that group, and then he didn't make the last cut. So,
Let's just do him. Be done with
so
it.
Well, Greg has some people that might be interested, so we'll open it back up for another week or so, and then we'll close it, see what we got, and set a date.
sounds good. Let's see, Matt Yamashita, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife wants to give the BOCC a report on deer management plan in the area, and especially around the Maroon Bells. So,
Oh, really?
we told him it wouldn't be until September, so I guess that, if that's all
Let's
right.
Book him.
Yeah,
Okay.
book him. That sounds awesome.
Okay. Deer management, and the deer herd up around the Maroon Bells.
Could they come and get them off of my rose bushes, please?
They give you tips on that.
Sleep outside.
Let's see, Lake
With a bat.
County would like to meet on 9/21, which is a Wednesday for lunch, meeting at the Twin Lakes. Are you
Is that
interested
our
in that?
regular work session? Is that a regular meeting?
I don't believe it is. It's a
Do
work-
they have
It
an
must be an
agenda?
off Wednesday.
The 27th would be our regular
Yeah,
meeting.
21st would be, I think it's an off
So let's
Wednesday.
see.
Buying?
This is September?
Sure.
Do they have an agenda?
They're buying us
That I
lunch.
don't
We
know.
always
I
make
guess
an agenda right
if you're
before the meeting.
amenable, we'll
Just
we'll
there a
reach out
reason
to
why
them.
they're requesting this? Or is
Because
it
we
just
meet
in
with them,
general?
Just
we
like to
generally
get
meet with them
together.
every year.
Yeah.
We didn't last year, that's
Been a
for
few
sure.
years
Because of
since it's been
COVID,
a-
we didn't meet with them, and
Well, they've heard that we're jealous of their dummy cop parked down by Twin
They
Lakes.
moved the car.
Yeah, I know he
to the
moved.
other
It's-
side.
I heard about our
scary.
lunch at the
The
Woody Creek
21st?
Tavern.
Let's see. She has got in here the 21st, yeah, on a Wednesday.
Of September.
For lunch. Mm-hmm.
It's
One
my
of my sisters
grandson's
has
7th
COVID.
birthday. I'm
Take
only-
him to the
You'll bring the
wagon
cake.
out at the
I'll bring my
Brush Creek
grandson.
intersection.
Yeah, there you go. We can take him to the intercept lot to the taco wagon.
Stand around in the gravel.
Okay, so it sounds like you're amenable to Charlotte reaching out and
Sure.
putting some of that together for you.
They
Okay.
want us to drive over to Twin Lakes, right? Like that's where they're proposing we all meet.
That's where we
correct.
usually meet.
Well, they
Twin
could take us to
Lakes.
lunch in Leadville. I'd love to go to Leadville.
I love Leadville.
I went to Leadville and every restaurant was packed. And then I went to, what did I do? I should have stopped at one of those little burrito, because those places were packed too, but.
I would do Twin Lakes or Leadville. I'd go.
Yeah, I'm amenable, but I have to be back for APSHA at 4.
Okay.
On which day?
Wednesday, the 21st of September, APSHA meeting.
If that's the case, you may want to, because
Let's
Francie, I'm
just-
guessing you come back too, so you may just want to go to Twin Lakes
Yeah.
instead of, okay, all right,
You can take your bike and ride on to
okay.
I'll take
Leadville
my rickshaw.
with your rickshaw. And Steve can go with you in the back.
Let's see, CV EPA, the 50th anniversary celebration is on 8/21 at 4 PM, Sunfire Ranch.
Oh, that's
Are
right.
there any commissioners planning
The
on
what?
attending?
The
Crystal
Saveppa?
It's the
Valley
same
and-
day.
Crystal Valley Environmental
Oh, that's
Protection
August, though.
Association.
It's a
Saveppa,
50th
is
anniversary.
it?
Saveppa, yeah.
Are you talking about that on the same day as lunch with the Lake County?
No, that's 8/21. This is 8/21.
Oh, I'm definitely going to that, because
Okay.
I am a member
Anybody
of
else?
Me too.
Saveppa.
Steve?
I probably won't be there.
Yeah, I will
Um,
be there, going to that.
Kelly, are you planning on?
I can
Yes, okay, so we'll
Just
notice
notice
it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't purchased
Okay.
a ticket yet.
Beacon
Do we have
County
to buy
Democratic
tickets, don't we?
Dinner at the T-Lazy 7 is August 24th, and it's noticed, it'll be noticed on the 8/23 agenda,
August 21st is a Sunday?
August
Yeah.
24th.
The 24th
Yeah,
is
but
Saveppa?
she's talking about the
No, no,
Saveppa thing
Saveppa is
at
the
Sunfire.
21st.
What time is the
Saveppa?
Sunfire
That's a
thing? Can
lazy-
you back up, Rich?
Oh, back up? Okay.
It's at
Saveppa
4
is at-
o'clock, but Casey's
Wait,
doing.
wait. The Saveppa is the 21st, which is a Sunday, is that correct?
The 21st for the 50th celebration at the Sunfire Ranch at
And
4
that's on a
o'clock.
Sunday.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
And Casey is doing tours of his greenhouse garden operation at 3 o'clock if you want. You have to go earlier.
Oh,
Definitely.
that's worth it.
Casey's operation is great.
That's really amazing what he's
Do
done.
we need
there.
tickets for that? Do we have to buy tickets to go to that?
Yeah, I think it's not expensive though. I think it's like $25 or something. I just saw the invitation, but it's on my other computer. Maybe Ty's cows will be back there.
If you find it, could you send it on to me?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's notice that. We need to notice the 24th for the Democratic Party dinner. We're planning and hoping to keep the agenda light for a regular meeting on the 24th.
24th of August?
24th of August.
Uh-huh.
Senator Bennett will be speaking at 4 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
The 24th. I
Mhm.
can't go.
But you're wolfing.
And I still don't have an invitation, and I've talked to both Betty and Howie about being in contact with me, and I never get anything from them.
I just bought a ticket for $100. I know. All right,
Yeah,
anybody else
got a
going?
few more.
You will be just getting back from Chile, so you will be isolated or quarantined. Steve, you will be not leaving yet for Alaska on the 24th,
The 27th is when I
but you're
fly.
going to 24th, you will be at the Democratic Party dinner?
Well, I was not, since I am unaffiliated now.
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
Probably not going to the Democratic dinner, even though
All
I
right.
would love
Well,
to hear
let's
the
notice
speakers.
it.
Anybody can go,
Notice it,
right?
just in case.
Well, I'm sure I could go, but I'm like not sure yet.
Mhm.
Well, it will be noticed
I
then
don't
on
know
the
my place in
23rd.
Well, the
world
tickets
right
were
now.
going
So.
quickly, apparently, but, okay, so next.
Let's see, staff plans to extend the Bacon County Cares Awards by 2 hours on September 13th, from 10 to 12.
It's a
and a
work
lunch to
session
follow.
day. I already told the board, and so we will have 16 proclamations, so
Yeah.
we'll get them ahead of time and we'll spread them out.
Okay. Yeah,
And
there's
then
a-
if we get done early, we can have a longer lunch, and if we run over, then we have a shorter lunch.
Okay.
Because we'll have a regular work session that starts at 1 o'clock.
All right.
I proposed slightly shorter proclamations so we can fit them all in.
We will fit them all in if the board chooses not to ramble on about things while we're presenting.
You read fast. You just have to read fast. Let's see, August 16th is joint exec with the Open Space and Trails.
No, it is with Healthy Rivers and Streams.
This says Open Space and Trails, so you think it's
September
Healthy
16th?
Rivers?
August 16th,
August
next
16th.
week, we're meeting.
Oh my God,
at-
you're jumping all over the place, dude.
It's our regular executive session before it's on Tuesday the 16th as part of our regular work session date. Our executive session that morning will be with Healthy Rivers and Stream.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Okay, we will correct that. Thank you, Patty.
Mhm.
And then two more quick ones. An update. The Airport Advisory Board retreat. I think I mentioned to you earlier that it was going to start at 1. As we go through, as you know, these agendas change.
Friday
Now
the-
it's Friday the 26th. And if you would like to come, you can come anytime. It's open to the public. But they'd like to do a 4:30.
Oh.
There's going to be a cash bar. And
Where
so
there
they
is
thought,
instead of one.
it's at the chalet.
Mountain Chalet?
Mountain Chalet, in the Mountain View room up there.
Upstairs, great.
At 4:30.
You mean it's by,
Airport Advisory Board.
Airport
it's-
Advisory.
And they're already having a shindig. I like these guys.
Well, they're closing it out with a shindig anyway, so
It's at 4 o'clock?
4:30.
and it's
The regular retreat starts
optional,
at,
it's not, we're not expected, but we can go? Is that
yeah,
what you're-
no, it's certainly open. There's no formal presentation or formal portion of it for you all. It's
So-
just to come and have a beer with the board, I guess. I
The
don't know.
start time is at 4:30.
For that, yes, 4:30 for the cash
What
bar.
time is there?
The regular retreat starts at 1. They'll focus the first few hours on emissions and just having that dialogue. And then they want to spend time just talking about
Bless you.
relationships as a group. You know, it's a young board. They're still trying to find their ground. So.
Okay.
And so are they asking us to be there or are
It's
they-
just open. It's open.
yeah, okay.
Yep.
You
Just-
can come at 1 o'clock and
The
sit
whole
there.
meeting.
As John says, we
You can
often
come
tilt
at-
the room.
Wait, you can come at 1 o'clock for the whole meeting. You can come at 2 o'clock for part of the whole meeting. You can come at 4:30 for a beer or a glass of wine, or you don't have to come at all.
There you go.
But at 1 o'clock is a discussion on emissions?
Yeah, they're gonna start having a conversation. Meeting Hunt will be there, and again, there won't be decisions, as you know, in retreats. It's just a dialogue and trying to set up the future for us to bring back to the board.
What the goal
some
is.
recommendations for
Yeah.
just around emissions
Okay.
for you. So what comes out of that will be some policy development, and then eventually it's going to come to you for approval. So,
Because the board,
Great.
the advisory board did have a discussion about it, but, and moved some things forward, but felt they needed more information to
Yeah.
clarify.
yeah, they still need to decide what they want to monitor and how and where. There's a number of items still
Timeframe.
that they need to get through. And then the last thing, Patty, is that for the open discussion today, Lisa, the two Lisas are showing up. Tasker and McDonald are going to show up and just talk about the Whitewater River Park in Basalt.
Okay.
Today.
Today, so they'll be on. Okay,
So they'll be joining us here.
yep,
Imminently.
directly.
Okay. Okay,
All right.
so now we have some time.
Ashley's
Ashley
chomping
is
at
on,
the
which
bit
is
there.
good.
Yeah, can we bump anything up, or are we?
Hi, Ashley. Should never sound on yet.
Can we move forward on that, or should, since the time is noticed, do we have members of the public who might?
I believe it's just Ashley, you're on now. I think it's just an internal kind of a conversation about next steps. So I don't know that
Okay.
that's.
Ashley, if you want to go ahead, and then maybe we can get Lisa to join us sooner.
I'll have Charlotte reach out to
That would
them.
be perfect.
They're probably monitoring this.
All right, Ashley, hi.
Hi, everyone. Just so you know, I do see Lisa Tasker on. She's just not showing her video.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Pearl. I'm the Climate Resiliency Manager for Picken County. I just have a quick staff update for the board on an acronym that hopefully we'll all start to hear about a bit more, which is DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So following I believe it was in June, we had a follow-up with the board from your retreat. And during that time, the board gave staff direction to put out an RFP to find a consultant to come in and help us set a baseline, set an understanding of where we are with regard to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. One, I think that as local governments, we're seeing it is more frequently a best practice of local governments to understand how our practices, our procedures, our services are either encouraging diversity in our community and diversity in our workforce, inclusion, do the people we serve in our community and do our employees feel included and part of everything we're doing? And are we serving folks equitably? Does that mean it's not equally, it's equitably? So really recognizing that different people have different needs, and some people may need different services delivered in a certain way. Staff may need different things to feel included and part of our organization. So what we've gone and done is Phyllis and myself have put together a diverse team of staff members from across Picken County representing a lot of different lived experiences, a variety of different identities, and some experience working in diversity, equity, inclusion. We've drafted an RFP, so a request for proposals, that's ready to go out. And we're hoping that we'll be able to put it out at the end of this week. It'll be out for 6 weeks. And we're just inviting consultants who do this work, either in the Valley, in Colorado, or elsewhere, to put in a proposal to come and be part of our Picken County team and help us really step into the space and explore it. The base ask of the RFP, so that you all know, is it's just asking to set a baseline. What are we doing well? What should we continue doing? And where are there opportunities to do more or do things differently? So we're really looking for a consultant to come in, really help us baseline, help us assess our current conditions. In the RFP, once you see it posted, you'll see that there are also other opportunities for consultants to bid on other parts of the project, which would be maybe we get the assessment back and we decide we want to move forward implementing one thing or another. We've invited consultants, if they want to bid on those other phases of the project, just so that we would know if we decided to go forward, what would we be looking at? How would we work with a consultant to do that? But as of right now, what we're hoping to do is just post the RFP this week, have it out for 6 weeks. The staff team will get together, review all the proposals, come back with the one that's most responsive, and we'll recommend a contract and an implementation plan. And then what we are asking a consultant to do is basically do interviews with board members, yourselves, as well as staff members across all departments and levels of the organization, and just really understand what we're doing well and where we can improve. Come back to us with an assessment document that they would then present both to the board as well as to staff in a variety of different settings. And then we can have a conversation. Where do we want to go as an organization? What do we want to do? And we will have some responses from that RFP to help us understand how we would engage with a consultant, or how a consultant could help us if we chose to move forward from that initial baseline assessment. But I think I just wanted to let you all know we moved on that direction that we heard from that meeting in June. I'm really excited and thankful for the team that has stepped up to create this RFP and review the proposals. I think it represents a really great experience from Pickens County, from all, like I said, all levels of the organization. And we're gonna keep the board in the loop, very much so. So it'll be kind of quiet for the next 6 weeks while it's out on the street. If you know anyone who does this work, either locally or elsewhere, please let them know. We'd love to see a variety of proposals come in. And then we'll check back in once we see and select our consultant, and understanding really how we're all expected to participate, how you all can participate if you so choose, and then we'll be following up along the way. So I think that is my update for today. I'm happy to answer questions. Basically just wanted you to know that the RFP is going out before you saw it, and let you know a little bit about the phased approach that we're taking, and that we now have a group of self-selected volunteers of Pickens County employees who are really excited to be doing this work and really helping the board and the organization as a whole move forward in this space. And it's baby steps as we all kind of learn and as we learn along the way. So that's my update. Happy to answer questions. Otherwise, we would see you again in 7 to 8 weeks once we've decided on who the most responsive proposal is, because hopefully we get a bunch. So thanks.
I have a question, and forgive me if I should probably already know the answer, but I don't seem to know it. How are we funding this? And do we have any idea of how much we're funding this for?
That is a lovely question. John and I have had some conversations about money that has been budgeted in this current budget year, as well as what we might need to do for future budget years. Also, we really need to get a sense of what these proposals are coming back at. There could be a pretty wide range. So that's what we're hoping to get a bit more knowledge on. But I do know that John has budgeted, per the board's direction, some money for this year. And then we're chatting about what we'll need next year.
I'm asking Rich, what fund did we budget this?
Yeah, that'll come out of that initiatives fund that John has.
That's
yeah.
what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we like that fund, and we want to make sure we we initiate something with it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Board have any other questions?
Kelly's got her hand up.
Kelly? Thanks, great.
Hi, thanks Ashley for the update. What is the time period for the initial phase of the work?
We're really going to let the consultants tell us what we're hopeful that the consultants will have a tried and true approach for doing this for organizations. So we're really looking to them to tell us what it's going to take to do it right. I suspect it will be a couple months to interview and meet with a large majority of the organization to really get that baseline assessment. We may see some that have some tools that could move us a little bit quicker, but I would suspect we're in for a couple months for the first part of the assessment, or for the assessment, which is phase 1.
Cool. And then is that both internally and externally facing? Is it just sort of involving like institutional, processes and approaches, or is it also like what the community side of it is?
The team has suggested writing the RFP for both. So understanding how we're supporting our employees, and then also how we're delivering services and interacting with the community. I don't think that we will go the third step, which is assessing the community as a standalone entity. It's really going to be Pickens County's interactions with the community, and then how we represent ourselves as an organization and our practices internally.
Great, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we can always take it further down the line if we determine when we're down the line if we want to go further.
Will we see the RFP? Like when are we going to get a look at it?
So it is ready to go out. We are happy to share it with you before we make it public if you'd like to see it first.
Sure, I'd love to just see what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
if you just maybe can send a link so those who want to see it, because normally we have some idea, but we don't, it's not an approval process for us, but if you could share it with the board, that would be great.
Perfect. I'll send it along, and then we are hoping to send it out by the end of this week. But if we need to hold off, we can obviously do that.
Okay. Anybody else? Ashley, thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you all. You have a wonderful day.
Yep, you too. Okay, we are moving along here now. Open discussion. Do we have Lisa and Lisa present? Are they
Yes.
here?
Yeah, Lisa Tasker here with Picken County Healthy Rivers program, as you all know. Lisa McDonald is unable to be here this afternoon, and she sends her regrets. But I also have Quinn Donnelly on deck to add to this conversation. I'm here this afternoon to give you an update on the plans for the Whitewater Park, which is now being called the Roaring Fork Whitewater Park. As you know, we put out an RFP for the streamside work in June, and we had numerous contractors attend our pre-bid meeting, but we received no bids. Work included the restrooms, benches, walking paths on the bank, seating areas, irrigation, and landscaping. And much of the landscaping was delayed to allow for proper plant types and the correct time of year to plant. So some of that has been delayed, but we do have a contract for maintenance for the in-channel work with the contractor who constructed the park, and we're using it for the fish park work. This work includes the boat ramp, the parking improvements, and the boardwalk that connects Fish Park to the Whitewater Park. So we're going to use this opportunity to also do maintenance on the waves, and Quinn can speak to that here in a minute and fill in some of those blanks that I can't give you the exact details on. But there is a plan to meet regarding the streamside work, as the project is tied to our GOCO grant. And as you may know, it expires at the end of this year, and we've already received 2 extensions due to the pandemic. So going for another extension probably is not an option. The restroom, boardwalk, and the emergency access path from 2 Rivers Road to the park are the GOCO granted funded projects. So I'm here to let you guys know that work will begin this week, and any in-river work will be completed by September 30th due to CPW regulations. Work outside of the river is expected to be wrapped up by late fall or early winter, depending on product availability and weather conditions and things like that. So we plan to send out a press release tomorrow, and we're working with Back 40 Stories on a PR campaign for social media, press, and radio spots. Signs are also going to be posted up and downstream warning the public of the work. And the park will be closed for safety reasons during construction. And Quinn can add anything in here that I'm missing and speak to some of the in-channel work that's going to occur. So I thought I saw Quinn on.
Quinn's there, but Quinn, just before you start there, Lisa, do we have an email list for the raft guides and those companies that we can send them a quick blast so they have a heads up if they are planning any use of that park area, so they'll know? I know that you're going to do a great job getting the word out there, but I think if we have a way to contact those guys directly, that might be a good idea.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And you know, I don't know the answer to that, but I bet that Matt Annabelle has a lot of those, and we'll definitely connect with him and make sure that happens.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Quinn, you want to give us some underwater details?
Yeah, it's nice, you know, that Lisa Tasker and McDonald were able to split out the boardwalk piece and the boat ramp from the bigger project, because the boat ramp's a pretty steep surface, so we're going to put a more durable surface in there. We're going to change the angle slightly, put some new staging lanes in, so folks aren't having to back into 2 Rivers Road to get down to the ramp. So they'll be able to pull in, kind of back down. It'll be, maybe a Class 2, Class 3 trailer move, but it's definitely a lot better than what it is now. Pretty compact site. And then the boardwalk's going to be able to connect the Fisherman's Park area where there's a lot of parking and facilities with the Whitewater Park. Plus, it'll be a cool kind of walk through that riparian area there between the two. So that all's going in. And then, yeah, the timing worked out well. And also the contractor that was selected, has the in-channel work experience. We're going to have him do a little bit of maintenance in the park itself. It's going to be pretty minor, probably just the end of August, beginning of September. We're going to pull some of the cobble that got deposited in 2019 in between the two wave features. I don't know if you remember, there was that kind of strange hydrograph where it peaked up like 1,000 CFS just one day, and it deposited a fair amount of material on river left side in between the two. And then we're going to adjust some boulders in that upper feature. That one was to get better passage at high water. We took some stuff out of that. We're going to put a couple boulders, move them around, try to get that wave working a little bit better at low water. The downstream wave's working really well, so we're not making any changes to that. That's like the favorite one for kids to go tube in and whatnot, even late into the summer. So yeah, the in-channel work, digging at Riverworks, Brian Barrickman's doing that work again. He's worked on the project before, so he's very familiar with it. And should just be a couple weeks here. As Lisa said, we are going to close the river through that section. Brian's putting signs in the upstream, at Wingo and then on the bridge. And then I think it's a great idea to just reach out to the guys directly just to make sure they're aware of it. And that's about it. Any questions from my end?
I noticed his fly rods in the back of his.
Do you have a map? Do you by chance have a map? I'm trying to visualize where everything is. I know where the boat ramp is. I know where the waves are, but what about the boardwalk and the wetland? I believe is upstream, but I'm trying to get a fix on where everything is you're talking about here.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Am I allowed to share my screen? If I have permission to.
Yes, you are.
All right, give me 1 second here. I'll pull it up.
Thanks, McKellar. Are you making your last minute packing list over there? McKella's leaving tomorrow on her vacation and she wants to be out of here.
I have a lot to wrap up.
Where are you going?
No
Costa Rica.
Oh, right.
No pocket knife.
Costa Rica?
Yeah.
Nice. Where?
Okay, let me share my screen.
Be gone for 3 weeks.
Real quick. Get this to work right. All right, can you guys see the?
It's coming up. There we go.
Okay, yeah, so, Fisherman's Park is a little bit closer to Highway 82. It's that, boat ramp that they use. It's not used late into the season because the water gets pretty low for guys to take drift boats and stuff, but during kind of runoff in early July, a lot of fishing guides use this stretch. And then, the whitewater park you can see here in Google Earth, the upper feature and the lower feature. And then basically the boardwalk is kind of running through this riparian area in the floodplain. Between the two. So it'll be down off the road, more kind of on river level, and it'd be a cool spot. And they're able to come up with this kind of modular design. It kind of goes together with Legos, and then the footers are not, they're basically sitting on the river cobble. We don't need to put in big caissons or anything. It's only about a 15-foot wide path that's going to get disturbed. So the boardwalk's kind of snake through that. They were Blue Green out of Aspen did the design, and they were able to go through and identify trees and really try to minimize the amount of trees that will be removed. I think the largest amount of trees that will be cut down is right at the boat ramp. Right now it goes straight down into the river from the road, and we are changing that angle slightly to, like I said, address some of those traffic safety concerns. So there are cutting down 3 or 4 of the bigger cottonwoods there, which we try to minimize, but just kind of balancing priorities.
I'm just remembering back to the big water years, 83, 84, and others, when the river going through there was just rocking
Basalt.
it and
This
was
is Two
actually
Rivers
eating
Road.
away at the riverbank. And I'm just
School's right
wondering
over
if this boardwalk is a temporary feature or more temporal than we think, assuming we'll have a big water year.
Yeah, so I mean, the bank that was getting kind of eaten into was down actually at the Whitewater Park. And that was part of the reason why it got put here. They basically stabilized that bank. For after the emergency repair, they just dumped riprap down the river. And so this was kind of part of that. And the boardwalk, the structure itself is actually above the 100-year, the platform people walk on. And then it's back so far into those trees, there's really not a lot of high velocity that could damage it. There might, during a really big water year, there might be some, maintenance needed, but in general, it's kind of out of the main flow and definitely out of the high velocity area.
Great, thank you. And
Because
then-
you're right, there is
yeah.
kind of a side channel that engages during
Right.
runoff and kind of flows down through here.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an old overflow channel, yeah.
Yeah.
it might still be in use, just hasn't been lately.
Your mic on.
Oh, yeah, mic's on. What about just upstream a little bit? Is there anything happening farther up toward the bridge?
No, there's not. We're where the ramp's coming in, we're putting some boulders in and some tie-off points so people that are staging can put their boat in the water and clip it onto a rock. Kind of similar to I don't know if you've used the Two Rivers Park recently. They put those basically climbing bolts and a couple boulders. We're doing a little bit of that, and so that's within pretty much the footprint of kind of where that picnic table is now and the ramp itself. So we're not doing anything upstream.
Because that's all that riparian.
Right, cattails. And
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we get into CDOT right away and a bunch of other things we want to try to avoid.
I think this is going to be great, and part of me wants the food truck concession at the takeout.
You're always
No, I think
looking
it'll be a
for
nice
food.
feature. I think it's cool that we're
Chocolate
connecting
and-
these two parks. Because right now people have to, they cross the road and walk along the road. It'll be just a cool spot for folks.
I did have somebody, I stopped in there one day, brought a sandwich out and sat out on the rocks. It was awesome. But somebody was asking me, concerned about the split rail fence along there, thinking it blocked the view plane from the road. And I said I thought it was public safety mostly, so people didn't step off of that. So was there a purpose behind that split rail it's pretty much along the boulder area, right up that section of the road?
Yeah, I think you hit it nail on the head, Patty. It's basically just because it's such a steep and high slope, we wanted to have some sort of delineator between, people on the street and the slope. And honestly, a lot of that will go away as part of this bigger streamside project once it gets built.
Okay.
But so it's kind of put in there just as a temporary, knowing that people were gonna, want to look down there and see things, and just kind of provide that barrier.
Right, that's what I thought, because it runs a little further up towards Fisherman's Park too, so thank you. That was the explanation I gave this person, and I told him I would call him back if I heard anything different, so I think we're good.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Okay, does the board have any questions, input? Do we get to do a ribbon cutting again in rafts?
I hope so.
That was fun, that was fun. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
I'm just going to give the boards a real quick heads up here. On the next Tuesday, we haven't really determined the time. We're going to start exec session in the morning. So just keep an eye out. If it starts at 10, we will actually be convening at 9:45. So anytime, so we need to make sure we posted that. And I will check on that when we do our agenda meeting on Thursday. So that way we can get into regular work session, out of, vote to go into exec, get out of work session and get into it.
That's not the Healthy Rivers and Stream meeting?
That is our Healthy Rivers and Stream meeting. I just don't know if they need 2 hours or we're just gonna do it for one. I haven't determined that yet. It's evolving as we speak. All right, open discussion. Greg?
Yeah, just the email that came today, Francie probably got it if we all haven't, from RAFTA. RAFTA is a recipient of CDOT's Westward 3 MOVE grant. It's a US DOT grant. Colorado received $24 million, this RAISE grant, and RAFTA's share is a total of $10.8 million. So we've just received this huge grant, and it's going to be used to develop the West Glenwood Springs Transit Station and to complete the 27th Street Underpass project.
So thank you for your letters supporting that, and thank you for your time in Washington.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, Francie went to
Came home with the
Washington and
bucks.
pounded the table, and they listened.
Okay, now we're gonna stick her on the FAA and get that money, so we're sending you back.
You know what was really cool about that meeting with the Department of Transportation and the Transportation Authority, Federal Transportation Authority, is that everybody who was there spoke. It was really unusual, so it wasn't like dominated by anything. Dan spoke, and Dave Johnson, of course, who's like the drive behind this, and Mike spoke. He's sort of the financial guy at RAFTA. All three of the board members spoke. It was really cool. It was really a balanced interaction with their boards. It was really cool. And it was spontaneous. It wasn't like, you talked about this, you talked about that. It was totally
Just how the
spontaneous.
flow.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah. Okay, other open discussion, Rich?
I just have one thing I thought I'd let you all know. Thanks to the great work with Dan out at the airport and Brian Elliott with Recondo, John Ely, myself and John Peacock. The RFP for the FBO went out this afternoon at
Oh,
3
wow.
o'clock. It was
I know you
posted.
guys had a long day the other day. I appreciate the time that you guys put in.
Oh, my word, it
was a long day.
It's 218 pages, and that doesn't include the attachments, but the actual RFP itself is around 35. We've got 8 members on the selection committee. Clint Kinney's going to sit on it from Snowmass. And Evan Marks will sit on it from the FAB, from our Financial Advisory Board. And then Brad Jacobson from Jacobson Daniels, who is the firm that'll be doing our RFP, or I mean our ALP. In fact, you're going to be talking about that tomorrow. I believe Dan's bringing that to you. But anyways, it'll be out. There'll be a couple of responses, opportunities, and then January 17th it's due. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Keep
It's a
us-
big deal.
keep us
So
in the
thank
loop.
you.
How
Well,
many-
and thank
how
you,
many-
board, for your direction and your certainly your support as we've gone through this. It's been a long discussion, even getting to this point. So thank you very
I
much.
can't wait to find out who submits it and from where.
There will be a number.
I know, it's gonna be interesting. You never know these days.
That's true. Looks like Kelly's got her hand up.
Kelly?
Show me the money.
We have the no hose factor in there,
No.
Kelly.
Good.
I know. We're gonna hear that from Kelly, like my million I wanted on Wildcat.
I wanted to check in. CCI district meetings are coming up, and apparently the proposals are supposed to be pitched at these meetings, legislative proposals. And so I wanted to check in and see if we could divide up the work on that. I'm not planning to go to any of them, but there are Zoom options, and it'd be great if other board members might have some willingness to talk about the RET. There are 5 districts and 5 meetings.
So if you can forward on the information, I have put together a RET workbook. I met this week with a gentleman from Denver who is hoping to line me up to meet with some members of the Colorado Forum. They have a fiscal policy position related to some inconsistencies and some roadblocks within the state constitution, Tabor, and for funding resources that they would like to have revisited, I think. And so I'm going to be seeking support, advice, direction from them. So we need CCI to be on board, and then we need to get the Colorado Municipal League, CML, on board, and anybody else we can get on board.
Didn't you just do this last week?
Well, the district meetings are taking place around different parts of the state.
Oh, yeah.
The first one, they
Freedom.
already had the first district meeting in them, I think the Front Range Metro kind of area.
But remember when Kelly said, will somebody talk about RET? I thought.
That was just to the general
That was just general
CCI
CCI.
membership.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
This is to try and convince
The Mountain District.
all the different districts, the
Okay, I get it.
commissioners.
I missed
to
the very beginning of what
support
Kelly
this.
said.
So we need, how many votes? We need 2 more than we got last year.
5% of 61 counties.
Okay. So, and we need to know any key commissioners, Kelly, and Steve, that you guys think we should be contacting. So let me know, Kelly, when those, if you can send me that info, and then I'll see what I can do. Maybe Steve can, and anybody else, we'll kind of do a written. Kelly did a great PowerPoint presentation that really explained it well, and we can work off of that, I think. Okay.
Sounds good. Can I, a couple more things?
All right, I appreciate, I think there was an email, but I'll make sure you guys know all the
Okay.
dates.
Thanks.
Those, please just let me know who can take it on. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to say on August 16th, which is next Tuesday, we'll all be busy. I won't even be around. Senator Bennett is going to Camp Hale for a tour with the Secretary Vilsack to talk about Camp Hale and as part of its inclusion with the CORE Act, which is still ongoing. It'd be great if we could send somebody over there, but I don't know.
Where is it?
It Camp
It's
Hale
Camp
by
Hale,
Leadville.
but we have a regular
I
meeting.
don't know where that is.
Yeah, it's by
Leadville.
Leadville.
By Tennessee Pass.
And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up is just the climate deal, which the more I read it, the more exciting it sounds. It's just been, the Senate passed. The Inflation Reduction Act, as it's called right now. It includes clean energy tax credits, sustainability accelerators, clean transportation money, environmental justice grants, clean manufacturing, healthy ports, energy efficiency, electrification, agricultural land, coastal conservation, methane fees for oil and gas, clean energy projects. This is huge, and it's going to affect the way we all work with. I think all of our environmental groups are rejoicing and also wondering how can we focus some of those federal monies locally on getting some of our projects done, electrification being the big one. The interesting tidbit I shared with Rich the other day was that one electric bus makes such a huge difference. It's almost the equivalent of all the energy savings that Core does in a year. Just switching one bus if it's on the road all the time. But our electric buses can't work too efficiently until we have the charging infrastructure in place. And so I know the city's working on that with Holy Cross or Core is. The city's got its own electric. But as we have to build this charging infrastructure in order to electrify. But I think this effort is going to help that. So I think we'll see an acceleration of change, and I'm celebrating it.
Well, and there was an additional 400 million for water. I think just in the western states, it was pushed through by Senator Bennett, Senator Kelly, and another senator. I don't have all the details in front of me, but that's what Hillary said to me, told me yesterday when I met with her.
And they're celebrating in Denver, at the town park in Denver, this bill passage, how Hickenlooper and Bennett really helped make it happen.
Yeah, Hickenlooper was really important to the final stages with Manchin. When you speak about electrification and having the infrastructure, that ties in with Steve saying we need to pursue the creation of more electricity locally. So I think we really, if we're going to push the electrification and hopefully get some federal money for that, some of that I think needs to be focused on generating that.
Right. They're basically saying that the electrical grid as it needs to be multiplied by about 4 in order to get where we plan to be. So,
After the I think it was Hurricane Maria that just devastated Puerto Rico, and one of the things that popped up in Puerto Rico after that was localized small grids instead of these huge national grids, so you can do that with solar. And so instead of trying to tap in like that huge Texas grid that went down last winter, you have more localized grids that don't need energy from Nebraska or wherever, and I think that's just something for us to keep in mind, because that was the first time anybody had really talked about that on a large scale, was when Puerto Rico was trying to come back from Hurricane Maria.
Well, it's the same thing that I brought up the other day when we were talking about, if people build a 10,000 square foot house, but it's all electric, and well, then that's great for how we look here, but where are we getting the electricity from?
Exactly.
So I don't want to push our striving to do the right thing onto doing negative things elsewhere.
Yeah, so a 10,000 square foot electrified house has to generate the electricity to be an electric house.
Not just suck it up from Nebraska.
Yeah.
we've got
From
our
coal.
Rich working on our microgrid. He says microgrid more often lately. I love hearing
It's becoming part of my vocabulary every day.
Do you know what it means?
We're
working
about.
on
Getting
it.
there.
We're working on it. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, other open discussion. Kelly? You're good? Steve?
I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else? We are finished.
Nice to see you all.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, noontime.
You coming down on Thursday to Carbondale?
Quite possibly.
Yeah, let's have lunch.
Thursday, Rafta.
Rafta.
I may have another meeting immediately after, but we'll
Check it
see.
out.
We might be able to. That'd be nice.
And then you're coming up for Tripsy Trout?
Yes, I am.
It'll be Jeanette, you, me, John Ely.
Yeah, and we can really figure out this thing for the
I just think if we go into that meeting with that big advisory board, that,
Well, yeah, we need to,
yeah, that we just
I'll-
really
I'll
need
go
to be focused on that,
to come
what we're
to
gonna say and do.
right now and see
You
who's
need to
there.
adjourn?
Because I know Cindy is down,
Yeah, okay.
Kara's out of pocket, and Cindy is in quarantine.
Where's Cindy?
And Michaela's leaving.
Moving.
I think we just should
Where's
shut down for 3
Alabama.
weeks until she gets back.
Oh, shit.
Sounds
Oh,
good.
I'll just apologize that I can't be there tomorrow since I don't know my kid's COVID status yet. I can't have a babysitter come here. But I apologize. I will join you all on Zoom again.
They've been exposed?
No, but they have symptoms and they got tested this morning.
Oh.
So,
Nice-
speaking
Let
of
us know.
One of my
Costa Rica,
sisters.
I just heard that
Okay.
Beth Melton is moving to Costa Rica as soon as her term as Routt County Commissioner is up in January.
Bring
Yeah,
him up
her
to
whole
jump on the
family, her
tramp,
2
Kelly.
kids and the husband
All right,
and-
grassroots, we
I
are
don't know where
finished.
they're moving, but somewhere down there.
Thank you, guys. See you tomorrow at noon.